PBC on Fox, and people go back and forth about Mayweather and Pacquiao on Facebook, which is it's kind of hilarious, but it is what it is. But one of the things I think a lot of people who are Mayweather fans are trying to say is that Pacquiao ducked the rematch with Jeff Horn. Uh, Let me explain something to people. First of all, I always talk about this risk versus reward. And this is something that's been in boxing forever. Okay, since the 1920s, since the 1910s. Okay, I think of Jack Johnson. Why he didn't face Sam Langford uh, is mainly because Sam Langford, the risk it wasn't worth the reward. Meaning, two black fighters fighting each other for the heavyweight championship of the world will not attract as much attention as a black fighter faces a white fighter, and everybody wanting the white fighter to beat the black fighter to prove a certain theory that black people are just animals and they're not strategic and so on. So you have to understand the fight of the century, for example, with Jack Johnson and I forgot what the guy's name is. That's crazy, but undefeated actually gentleman who faced Jack Johnson. But anyway, the Great White Hope he was called. Um, that was a big selling fight that made a lot of money because um, the guy brought a whole set of white eyes, and white eyes bring cash. So it'll come to me his name. The point is, it has to make sense. Okay, so let me go to Pacquiao versus Jeff Horn and explain something to people so they will understand. So Pacquiao, when he first faced Jeff Horn, first of all, Terrence Crawford wanted to face Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao was the WBO champion. He just beat Jesse Vargas. Um, he took the title back. Okay. Now, Pacquiao, when offered to face Terrence Crawford, because Terrence Crawford is a name in boxing, everybody knows. Pacquiao asked Bob Arum, said, "Listen, man, give me that 25 mil I usually get, or 20 mil. I'll face Terrence Crawford." Bob Arum was like, "Nah, I can't offer you 20 mil." All right. So what eventually ended up happening is Bob Arum had this dude, Jeff Horn, who undefeated fighter, etc. So Bob Arum offered him to face Horn to face Pacquiao. Now Bob Arum keeps on saying that he didn't want Terrence Crawford to face Manny Pacquiao because he was afraid for Manny Pacquiao, but that's a lie. Bob Arum is a Jewish dude who thinks about dollars and cents all the time. Okay, and bottom line was Bob Arum didn't want to put out 20 million on Pacquiao after Pacquiao just lost to Floyd Mayweather. Even though Pacquiao beat Timothy Bradley, Pacquiao beat Jesse Vargas to retain the WBO title again, yet another time. Bob Arum wasn't willing to fork out $20 million to give Manny Pacquiao. He's been giving him 20 million, something like that. So Pacquiao would have to take a pay cut to face Terrence Crawford because I guess Bob Arum thought Terrence Crawford wasn't a seller. He keeps on saying that over and over. Thing about it is, so Bob Arum referred to Jeff Horn. Jeff Horn was a nobody in boxing. In fact, the fight between, and when I mean nobody really knew about Jeff Horn. Okay, he was an undefeated Australian fighter. Fought guys like Randall Bailey, former welterweight world champion. So it wasn't like Jeff Horn was beating stiffs. He was beating some stiffs at first, but then he started moving up and facing better and better names. But it's a guy way back down in Australia. Nobody know about Jeff Horn. Okay, so Pacquiao versus Jeff Horn was never going to make no money, even though Pacquiao was a big name in boxing. Jeff Horn is just nobody. Like everybody would be like, why are he facing this dude? Which is what everybody said. I did my little homework on Jeff Horn, so I knew he was a good fighter. Nonetheless, Pacquiao was paid $10 million to face Jeff Horn. And remember, Bob Arum gets a cut of that $10 million. That's a pay cut from what Pacquiao was getting before. It wasn't even a pay-per-view. It was on ESPN. Okay? Pacquiao goes down in Australia, faces Jeff Horn. He's getting a pay cut. And on top of that, this dude, Jeff Horn, beats him. in Australia because Jeff Horn has been studying Pacquiao for his entire life. He developed a style to beat Pacquiao. Okay, this is what people don't understand. You know, it's one thing when you face a fighter and you know that other fighter's a great fighter or whatever. But it's another thing when somebody's been studying their whole lives to just beat you. Your particular style, they're working their ass off to beat that style. And that's the case with Jeff Horn. He and his trainer, they studied Pacquiao. They looked at Pacquiao since Jeff Horn been watching Pacquiao since he's a kid. And they developed a style to beat Manny Pacquiao. Okay? So they were longing for that opportunity. Now they didn't have no style to beat Terrence Crawford. They had no style to beat nobody else, which is why Jeff Horn gets his ass beat by other people, right? Tim Tszyu beat him. Terrence Crawford beat him. That kid, what's his name? It's good. Zarafa beat him, right? All these guys beat him because Jeff Horn had a style. Mainly, it was a problem. It is a problematic style because it's very they say awkward, and it is really awkward because he has good footwork and everything, and he bum rushes you to the inside, and then once he gets to the inside of you, he's bullying you on the inside, right? And rabbit punching and all that. Costa Tszyu used to catch him on the inside, pivot around him and stuff. Not Costa Tszyu, sorry, Tim Tszyu. He would just pivot around him. You have to pivot around guys like that. Anyways, and Terrence Crawford too. But anyways, the point is, his style was difficult. Okay, it was ugly. He made the fight ugly with Pacquiao, difficult with Pacquiao. Pacquiao went down into Australia to face this dude, and Pacquiao the A side. I mean, Bob Arum treated Pacquiao so bad because Pacquiao veteran, great name in boxing. So Pacquiao, let me explain to you guys why Pacquiao did not rematch Jeff Horn. It's really simple. One, the man is in the twilight of his career. Okay, he's a veteran of the sport. You don't treat veterans like that. Bob Arum sacrificed Pacquiao so that he could get Jeff Horn to get Jeff Horn the championship. Okay, so he knew this guy was cooking and was planning for Pacquiao for the longest while. Pacquiao goes into the belly of the beast. Now, let me explain something to y'all because this is the mindset of Pacquiao. Pacquiao don't duck and dodge nobody. Pacquiao loved the smoke. Pacquiao loved the smoke. And if y'all don't realize that, look at his last 5 fights of his career. Pacquiao don't give a shit. Pacquiao, but you gotta pay Pacquiao, man. Pacquiao get exploited easily. I'm so glad he joined up with Al Heyman and he's working with Al Heyman. I'm so glad because Al Heyman understands veterans are supposed to get the most amount of money in their lives in the last couple of fights of their lives. Anyway, I'm gonna explain this whole thing out because shout out to this dude that just came on my channel. Shout out to JJ. He said Pacquiao not only ducked the rematch, but he also got caught out for trying to conceal his ducking when he lied and claimed that Horn had declined the rematch. Okay, I'm going to talk this whole thing out because y'all, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. I'm going to explain to y'all why what Pacquiao did and why not getting a rematch was the best thing he ever did in his career. I'm going to explain it to you. Because, guys, you got to understand, it must make sense. So, this was the last fight on Pacquiao's contract, people. It was the last fight on Pacquiao's contract. I'm gonna ask y'all a question after all of this. And y'all see if this made sense or not. So, Pacquiao goes into Jeff Horn's place. JJ, shout out to JJ. The rematch clause was only in Pacquiao's favor. So, that was a dumb lie. I'm gonna explain everything to y'all because it's, trust me, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. I want you to hear that. And Bob Arum's not a dude that pays out money. He just after the superstar if he can make real money off of it. If he can't make real money off of you, you saw what he did to Terrence Crawford. You see how he dissed Terrence Crawford and get him out of there? I don't want to no home in Beverly Hills. Y'all don't understand Bob Arum. So it's the last fight. Listen to me here, JJ, and everybody else. I'm gonna talk this, and y'all can keep on commenting, no problem. This was the last fight on Pacquiao's contract with Top Rank. So Pacquiao would have get out of the contract if he just did what Bob Arum said. So Bob Arum set up the situation so Pacquiao could lose. Think about it.
Pacquiao's going down into a dude's territory in Australia where there could be home cooking. There was no home cooking in my opinion. I thought Jeff Horn beat him straight up, right? But what I could tell you though is you going into another guy's territory, which Pacquiao has been doing time and time again. Pacquiao hasn't fought in the Philippines in a long time. He fought in Macau, China, right? That was his kind of his area, Asia, Macau, China, against Lucas Matisse. We're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about that fight just now. But break it down. I'm gonna break it down to you guys. I'm taking a little too long with this, but nonetheless, I'm gonna take my time. So Manny Pacquiao, okay, faces Jeff Horn in Jeff Horn's country. Pacquiao's the A side, but that's how to tell you, he don't duck and dodge nobody. He went straight into Australia, man. Into Jeff Horn's home turf to fight Jeff Horn. He loved the smoke. He not afraid of nothing, but you gotta be smart in boxing. You gotta be smart in boxing. You can't let people exploit you. So he went down into Jeff Horn's territory. All right. And this, he reminded me of Evander Holyfield. And he lost the fight. Now, he really hurt Jeff Horn in round 9. He could have pulled it off. He could have knocked his ass out. Jeff Horn did his thing. And he got back in control by round 10, 11, and 12. I thought Jeff Horn swept that fight. He made it ugly. An ugly fight. Mostly on the inside. But Jeff Horn, his footwork matched Pacquiao's footwork. He studied Pacquiao. He couldn't do shit on the inside, just rabbit punching and stuff, and made the fight very ugly. But he could nullify what Pacquiao did best. He made a mistake in round 9, and Pacquiao caught him, and Pacquiao almost got him out of there, right? So Jeff Horn won the fight. Fine. Now understand this. Pacquiao violated every single rule that you're supposed to do in boxing, which is, it need to make sense. Jeff Horn is what we call a high risk, low reward. What was Pacquiao getting out of that fight? What was he getting out of that fight? He wasn't fighting a name. He wasn't getting paid as he's supposed to get paid. All right? He's going against a guy that's a no-namer. And the worst case scenario happened. 1, he lost the fight, so a no-namer made a name off of him. 2, he didn't get paid for that. According to the risk, you're supposed to get a reward. A no-namer could be a wild card. We've seen it time and time again. We just saw Cobbs lose to Roca. Now Roca is a solid dude, spar Pacquiao, everything. He's a solid dude. But if you like Cobbs, you see that as an upset. Okay? I mean, Cobbs was stepping up in competition, but I'm just saying. Cobbs was building a name for himself. Outspoken, blah, 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 blah. All right, let's go back to Pacquiao. Pacquiao is a legend. Pacquiao's a legend. Legends ain't supposed to be fighting guys on the come up. Pacquiao violated that rule. And he took on Jeff Horn. Ain't nobody know who Jeff Horn was. He was a wild card. Nobody knew who he was. Again, a no name doesn't mean you're not good. It just means you haven't made a name for yourself. Jeff Horn made his name off of Pacquiao. Okay? He could say, I beat Pacquiao. And everybody's like, oh man, Pacquiao, you let a school teacher beat you? That's what everybody be saying now. But Jeff Horn wasn't just a school teacher. They worked out the science. He and his trainer. You can see they're scientists. There's a method to the madness with Jeff Horn. And just to prove it, Jeff Horn knocked out Anthony Mundine at, I believe it was middleweight. I think he was up at middleweight. Jeff Horn is a big dude. He moved from welterweight to middleweight. Okay, so anyway, we're going through it so you guys are. After Terrence Crawford beat his ass, and again, just because Terrence Crawford beat Jeff Horn didn't mean Jeff Horn didn't have problems. He wasn't a problem to everybody else. And you saw it. He came back against Zarafa and he beat Zarafa, the guy that beat him. Okay? Jeff Horn was a name in Australia. He won't fighting outside of Australia like that, right? Okay. Jeff Horn was an Olympian. He wasn't too bad. Jeff Horn wasn't bad at all. Let me tell you something. Now, in terms of the welterweights that are in the welterweight division, they probably roast his ass because they on another level. But you put Jeff Horn in there again in the super welterweight division or the middleweight division, he do pretty good. Okay, the only thing is Jeff Horn fight most of his fights in Australia. Now, Costa Tszou's son, he's on another level. You understand what I'm saying? There's different levels to boxing, but we'll get back to that. So Jeff Horn is a good fighter. He's a good fighter. He beat most guys. He beat contenders, whether it's middleweight or super welterweight. Jeff Horn would do well against guys basically who are B level and below. He'll beat them. He'll beat them. Now, A-level fighters, he's not going to just beat. He's not just going to beat. He beat Pacquiao. Everybody, but he studied for Pacquiao. You understand what I'm saying? He studied for Pacquiao. All right, he studied that dude. Okay, he knew what works with Pacquiao and what doesn't work with Pacquiao, and he refined his craft to be able to deal with a Pacquiao. His whole life he wanted to face Pacquiao, and he got his dream, and he actually attained it. But he is that they're cerebral people, and you hear his trainer and so on. So Jeff Horn welcomed a rematch with Manny Pacquiao after Manny Pacquiao got beat. But think about this: you at the contract. Why would you sign back with Bob Arum to get lowballed again? You're not going to get $25 million for the rematch because you're not a champion no more. You didn't get to flex your A side. You went down in Australia. That fight going to happen again in Australia. Same judges. So if you felt that they robbed you, they're going to rob you again. And you're not going to get paid for it. Manny Pacquiao didn't rematch Jeff Horn. You know what he did? He went into he was done with Bob Arum. Now MP Promotions promoted the next fight that Manny Pacquiao had in Macau, China against Lucas Matisse. So now Manny Pacquiao, who's supposed to be the A side, who's supposed to actually be dictating things, finally does it. He faces Lucas Matisse, who's the WBA regular champion. Remember, he lost the title? He about to get another one back, okay? And put himself in position to get the real title, okay? Listen to me now. Lucas Matisse made a career-high payday of $2.5 million to face Manny Pacquiao. What do you think Manny Pacquiao got? What do you think Manny Pacquiao got? He's his own promoter, MP Promotions, facing Lucas Matisse, a champion, okay? Think about what I'm saying. He's his own boss. He's paying his own self. You think he made $10 million off of that? And that was a pay-per-view in Macau, China, man. You know Macau, China is like the Las Vegas of boxing. It's like the Mecca of boxing down in Asia. Pacquiao made mad money off of that fight. More than $10 million. More than $10 million. And then he hooked up with Al Heyman and the PBC. And his first fight in the PBC, he faced Adrian Broner. And you know how much that mother made? Twice what Bob Arum was offering him. $20 million facing a name, Adrian the Problem Broner, a 4-divisional world champ. And he beat him. Okay? Al Heyman treated Pacquiao like the A-side he was. MP Promotions and Mayweather Promotions promoted that fight. That is, Pacquiao hooked up with Floyd. And they co-promoted the event. Because MP Promotions needs a registered promotional company. Just like our Floyd hooked up with Oscar. Pacquiao MP Promotions hooked up with Mayweather Promotions. Because Mayweather Promotions had the license in America. And they both promoted that fight. And Pacquiao made $20 million. Was it a pay-per-view? I can't remember. $20 million, y'all. $20 million. And God knows how much he made in Macau, China. So you tell me I'm going to rematch? I'm going to sign back with lowball Bob Arum? He see me as an old haggard thing to make money off of and to get titles off of, right? Because I'm washed up as far as he's concerned, right? So I'm gonna take little penny change in the twilight of my boxing career. Come on, man, that ain't right. And one thing about Al Heyman, he treats his veterans right. Louis Collazo now collecting paychecks. Collazo in the twilight of his career, after being used and abused and going up and down, I see how Al Heyman treat Louis Collazo, man. I see how Al Heyman treated Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather made the biggest payday ever in his career, and all the money he collected for himself. A little 10% for Al Heyman. All right, y'all need to come on, man. I'm giving y'all another one. So again, risk versus reward. At the time when you have made a name for yourself in boxing, you don't fight no namers. You don't fight. They need to work their way up to fight you. And it's always been that way in boxing, except with guys like Bob Arum. Bob Arum put Muhammad Ali in there with Larry Holmes. And I'm going to say this. That was the worst thing you could ever do, Bob Arum. Ali got, look, man, y'all, and then what happened to Ali must never happen to another boxer. If you were a veteran, you're supposed to be advocating other veterans or big fights. You're supposed to get big, especially with the legacy of Pacquiao, man. He wasn't supposed to go in the ring with Jeff Horn. Now, I can understand if he faced Terrence Crawford, but you got to pay the man. You got to pay that man for his legacy. If Crawford going to beat him, you got to pay him, man. Risk versus reward. And Arum didn't want to pay him. No, he didn't want to pay him $20 million. All Pacquiao asked was he usually get for big fights. $20 million, $25 million. That's all he asked Bob Arum. He couldn't do that. Arum couldn't cough up that money because as far as he's concerned, Pacquiao's done. He coughing up too much money for this dude. You can't do it like that. That's wrong. The man's a veteran. You need to respect your veterans, man. Pay them. Pay your veterans. Especially legends like Manny Pacquiao. Okay? So that's what really went down. See, people don't understand boxing's a business, man. Don't let nobody fool you. We as fans, we want to see certain fights. We wanted to see Pacquiao versus Terrence Crawford. But if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. It's always been that way in boxing. And there's always a way to negotiate to get a boxer their money because you cannot pay these kinds of boxers. You can't pay them for the value that they are. And they deserve it. You know what I'll tell you why these boxers deserve it? They don't got no pension. Nobody's looking out for them after their careers are over. So whatever monies they make now, that had to carry over for the rest of their lives. Unless they pick up a job or something else after. And they shouldn't be picking up a job after because they're supposed to be recouping after taking so much punches to their head. You understand what I'm saying? I'm going into this sport at 47 years old. I understand it's dangerous. Okay? So let me explain a couple other things to you guys, man. So Pacquiao, after that fight, after the Broner fight, he fought Keith Thurman. Listen to the names. Keith Thurman is an established super champion. He beat names like Sean Porter, Danny Jacobs, right? Robert Guerrero, right? He fought names. He was the unified WBC, WBA champion. Now, why would I want to rematch Jeff Horn and then be left on the shelf? Because Bob Arum, according to Bob Arum, let's say he beat Jeff Horn. What else was out there for Pacquiao? Some other unknown guy. Look at Bob Arum bring up Gavaliauskas versus Terrence Crawford. What the hell is Terrence Crawford doing facing Gavaliauskas? He's supposed to be getting the big names, the big fights. The man put himself in a position since junior welterweight, being the undisputed champion. Why am I facing Gavaliauskas? Why am I facing dudes that are no-namers? Nobody knows these dudes. I'm supposed to be facing big names. Terrence Crawford now, he's his own agent, thank God. That Errol Spence fight is going to happen. I'm gonna tell y'all right now, Errol Spence is going to face Terrence Crawford right after. If he beats Dennis Ugas, which is not a guarantee, but the point is, Errol's gonna keep his word, and he's going to face Terrence Crawford. He's gonna be ready for Terrence. Okay, Terrence is gonna get that big fight. You know why? Because Terrence is his own entity, sort of like. He's not completely, but MTK does a great job. And MTK is going to make sure whatever Terrence Crawford say he want to get, he going to get it. MTK going to get him that fight with Errol Spence. Whatever it needs to do, however they need to hack it out, but they're going to get it done. All right? And Errol knows that, and Terrence knows that, and they know they're doing that thing in the background. I ain't going to say nothing more about that. All right? That fight is going to happen. All right? Mika Cotto had to leave Top Rank to get a fight with Floyd Mayweather. Okay? And I'm trying to explain to you people something. And Mika Cotto was a pay-per-view star. Okay? That's why it was called Ring Kings. I'm trying to explain to you guys, the veterans, when Cotto was his own boss, doing his own thing, Cotto made a whole set of money and dictated what he wanted to do. And that's where boxers need to be. It takes it's a process. You can't just start off trying to be your own boss. And not, you have to learn the game. You have to learn how things go and so on. You have to be an apprentice under somebody for a period of time. A promoter, a big promoter. But the point is, when I look at guys like Pacquiao, Bob Arum exploited that dude. It make me mad. But I know Pacquiao paid his dues, and now he's got his promotional company, MP Promotions. They're putting out some great Filipino fighters. All right? Guess how much Pacquiao made for the Thurman fight? That's right. In the front end, $10 million guaranteed. That means win, lose, or draw, he was getting $10 million. On the back end, all in all, when everything is said and done, $20 million to $25 million, which is what Pacquiao was worth. Okay? Your Dennis Ugas fight, which was the last fight of Manny Pacquiao's career. He beat Keith Thurman, so his worth went up. So, on the front end, he was guaranteed $5 million. And you might say, $5 million, man. But on the back end, $25 million. Means $30 million that man collects when all is said and done. All right? And my point being, our rematch with Jeff Horn made no financial sense. None. It means you have to resign a contract with Bob Arum, one, to get that rematch. And then you're stuck in a rut, possibly having to face Terrence Crawford for pennies if you lose the other fight. If you win, you're still not going to get more than $10 million. And then what happens to your future? Because all of these other fights that Pacquiao got is because he went with the PBC. And he also has a future with the PBC through his promotional company. He good. He good. Because he gets his fighters under him to get fights. So he's super good. You know what I'm saying? You have to look at these people's careers. You have to look at the business of boxing. What makes sense for the person? All right? Don't tell me what makes sense for Jeff Horn. Jeff Horn has to look out for Jeff Horn. Of course. Jeff Horn only had upside. A rematch would have only been upside for Jeff Horn. Because Jeff Horn never seen that kind of money that Pacquiao see. But it makes absolutely no sense for Pacquiao to rematch Jeff Horn. All right? Risk versus reward. If he wins, he's still in no-worrying land. His only option probably Terrence Crawford or a no-namer again. More no-namers from Bob Arum. No big fights. And the downside is he loses to Jeff Horn, and his paycheck goes down. His value goes down. There's no upside to facing Jeff Horn a second time. You understand? Now, y'all will say, well, back in the day, guys used to do that. They used to rematch people and stuff. No, homie. No. Wrong. Wrong again. Risk versus reward has always been around. And a lot of people don't know that. Guys rematch guys that they either had close fights with or they beat. You look at Sugar Ray Robinson. I'm gonna give you an example of Sugar Ray Robinson. Sugar Ray Robinson was old like Pacquiao when he faced the fighter. His name is hold on, shit, I can't believe I just drew a blank. Hold on. It'll come to me. It was an infighter. Good infighter. Ralph Tiger Jones. Okay. Sugar Ray Robinson faced Ralph Tiger Jones. in his comeback. He was fighting a number of comeback fights after he had lost to Joey Maxim. And he faced Ralph Tiger Jones. Ralph Tiger Jones convincingly beat his ass. All right? Convincingly. Ralph Tiger Jones was a good fighter. Good fighter. Did Sugar Ray Robinson look to rematch Ralph Tiger Jones? Fuck no. Fuck no. Ralph Tiger Jones was one of those avoided fighters. There was no upside to it. They didn't make a whole bunch of money fighting Ralph Tiger Jones, first of all. Alright? Sugar Ray Robinson instead did a couple of stay busies, and then he got in line to face the champion, Bobo Olsen. Beat his ass. And won the middleweight title of the world again a third time. Okay? Alright? He didn't rematch Ralph Tiger Jones. Risk versus reward. Risk versus reward. Okay? It didn't make no financial sense going to face Ralph Tiger Jones a second time. Just to prove that I'm better than him. I'm old. I'm in the twilight of my career. I need to get as much people and exposure and fights as I can. I'm going to give you all another example. A modern guy. Amir Khan. Amir Khan faced, I forgot what the first name of the guy is, Prescott. Okay? He's fighting him. Prescott, Colombian fighter. Most of those Colombians and Venezuelans, you know they got they got lightning and thunder in their fists. Thunder, not lightning. Your fists, punch hard, not fast necessarily. Prescott knocked Amir Khan out. Did Amir Khan look to face Prescott a second time? No! And y'all be looking at it like, why didn't he rematch Prescott? Because there are bigger fights on the horizon for him. Risk versus reward. I don't need to rematch that dude. If you want to, you can, for your record and for your legacy. And it was early in his career, so he could have. Right? Because he didn't have a big name like that or whatever. But he decided to move on. Some people move on. Risk versus reward. Maybe he gets knocked out again, and then what happens to his career? That's it. It stalls out. Right? So, this is how boxing works. Now, you will say, well, some people, man, they duck fighters. True. Sometimes they do. And it's happened, throughout boxing history. Charlie Burley versus Sugar Ray Robinson. We know Sugar Ray Robinson ducked Charlie Burley. and when they finally were starting to make an agreement to have something happen in Pittsburgh, what did Sugar Ray Robinson do? Sugar Ray Robinson priced himself out, right? I think he said 10 million or something like that. Some ridiculous figure he called to fight. And it was because Sugar Ray Robinson wasn't interested in facing Charlie Burley for two reasons. One, people say there was no money in Robinson facing Charlie Burley. Because Charlie Burley was a avoided fighter. All right. Now, here, you would get a lot of praise for facing an avoided fighter and beating their ass, back then. But the thing about it is, you don't know if everybody would come to see that fight. That's the problem. Would people come out of their places to see Sugar Ray Robinson face Charlie Burley? Well, I'm going to say this. The risk versus reward was high versus Sugar Ray Robinson going in there and facing a low-tier guy like what's the guy name? The guy that he just beat the crap out of and just got out of there. Fasuri. Fasuri was shit compared to Charlie Burley. You know what I'm saying? Fasuri was like, average. You know what I mean? And you saw how Sugar Ray Robinson beat the crap out of Fasari, right? Because Fasari didn't have the greatest defense. He's average. Right? So why would Sugar Ray Robinson, again, risk versus reward. Why would Sugar Ray Robinson face a dude that's going to have a very difficult style for him to get paid what he would get paid to face Charlie Fasuri? That's why Sugar Ray Robinson, he put an astronomical figure on there. And when you see a fighter put an astronomical figure, like Shane Mosley versus Floyd Mayweather, when Floyd Mayweather offered to face Shane Mosley in 1999, Shane Mosley said, $10 million, ninja, and I'll fight you. Why he put that astronomical figure on there is to say, Risk versus reward, it ain't making no sense. I'm getting paid pennies to face you when I could get paid millions to face you later down the road. This is basically the reasoning. Now, imagine Charlie Fusuri, I'm not Charlie Fusuri, I'm Charlie Burley, was at the end of his career when these offers were made with Sugar Ray Robinson. We're talking Charlie Burley was like 2 to 3 years out from when he retired. And Sugar Ray Robinson was bucking like that. Now, all I'm saying is not necessarily, like I said before, Sugar Ray Robinson did duck Charlie Burley, but he had a good reason for it. The risk versus reward, that's the law. The risk versus reward. If you're a smart fighter, you calculate the risk versus the reward. And it didn't make no sense. It wasn't like Charlie Burley, because he was so avoided, and nobody really called his name. To Sugar Ray Robinson's credit, he's not the only guy that ducked Charlie Burley. Let me tell you the guys that ducked Charlie Burley. Billy Conn, the great light heavyweight champion of the world, ducked Charlie Burley. At 175, Charlie Burley was trying to get, he was trying to get a title. Charlie Burley tried to get a title from 147 to 175. I'm going to say this again. Charlie Burley was ducked from 147 to 175. Champions in 3 divisions did not mention Charlie Burley's name. We talking Henry Armstrong didn't want to face Charlie Burley. Tony Zale. Okay? Zidane. Billy Conn. These guys didn't want to face Charlie Burley. So it's not, don't get it twisted. Sugar Ray Robinson wasn't the only guy that ducked Charlie Burley. But they ducked him. Okay? And the reason was, and Charlie Burley, it's unfortunate, Charlie Burley never got a chance at the championship. All right? The man actually fought heavyweights. Charlie Burley was a middleweight. He was a middleweight. So when Sugar Ray Robinson would have faced him, even though Sugar Ray Robinson was campaigning at welterweight, he was also fighting middleweights. So it would not have been a title fight. But Robinson didn't want nothing to do with Charlie Burley. Nothing. All right? And the reason is risk versus reward. I'm not saying that calculating risk versus reward means that you wouldn't duck somebody. No. But you have to understand the reasoning behind it. Okay? Why would I face you for what I could face another guy for and make the same amount of money? You are worth, what he's saying is, Sugar Ray Robinson saying, you are worth more than that, which is a compliment to Charlie Burley. Okay? And so I want you guys to understand. When Shane Mosley said to Floyd Mayweather, give me $10 million, I'll face you. Which eventually, Floyd did actually pay him $10 million when they did face each other. Highest career high payday for Shane Mosley. But the point is, Shane Mosley was saying the value he thought that Floyd Mayweather fight would be worth. He was saying that Floyd's that good, which is a compliment when a fighter says that. But do understand, fighters are going to do calculations of risk versus reward. Manny Pacquiao violated that rule by facing Jeff Horn because he wanted to get out of his contract with Bob Arum. Right? Instead of sitting on a shelf, because Bob Arum will make you sit on a shelf. You saw what happened to Mikey Garcia. You saw what Bob Arum did to him. Right? Because Mikey Garcia didn't face Gamboa. Bob Arum's like that. He'll just put you on a shelf and just not promote you. And he could have done that to Pacquiao. So Pacquiao got out of his contract with Bob Arum, and then he did his own thing. And he gave you fights that you wanted to see. You wanted to see Adrian Broner versus Manny Pacquiao. You wanted to see Keith Thurman versus Pacquiao. And each one of them guys is killers, right? Broner, he could crack, right? He's a killer. He broke Manny Pacquiao's jaw, actually, in that fight, as he broke Marcos Maidana's jaw. You saw Lucas Matisse. Matisse is a killer. But he went through Provodnikov. Provodnikov did him in a bit. But he was still a killer, but it's just that, he succumbed to Pacquiao. And then, of course, Keith Thurman. You can't really say much about Keith Thurman except that you can't believe that Pacquiao beat him. But he beat Keith Thurman. You know what I'm saying? And he went toe-to-toe with the Dennis Ugas, man. Dennis Ugas beat him, but, he went toe-to-toe with the Dennis Ugas, man. You know what I'm saying? Because Pacquiao, He's not a fighter that don't want to smoke, but you have to sometimes move smart. If you, especially in the twilight of your career, man, you can't be just be fighting stupid. You know, you can't be fighting stupid, right? Remember, it's you want. You don't want no small fry. You don't want no Jeff Horn, man. Could he have done some things differently to beat Jeff Horn in a rematch? Probably, but who cares? Like that's Jeff Horn, man. He done already. He done already. He done already made his name off of Pacquiao. He made his name. No matter what happens, people will say, "Well, Jeff Horn beat you." Even if he beat him in a rematch, they say Jeff Horn still beat you. So, I mean, what's the use? You know what I'm saying? JJ said, "Man, all your points are valid. Pacquiao should have just been honest and said he didn't want the Horn rematch instead of lying and saying he accepted the Horn rematch and Horn declined it. I thought Pacquiao made 20 million versus Horn. No, it's 10 million. You can check it up on Google right now. Why do you think Pacquiao felt the need to lie and he accepted the rematch that it didn't happen because Horn? I don't know, man. Guys say all kinds of crap in the media that they don't mean. They just say things. I didn't want to see any of those Pacquiao fights except the Ugas fight. Yo, I was glad. I wanted to see the Thurman fight. I wanted to see if Thurman could beat his ass. I was shocked. I picked Thurman to beat him. The Broner fight, not so much, but Broner got who he wanted to face. Broner always felt he could beat Pacquiao, but I thought, after his losses and stuff that, and the way how people carried his name in the mud, it might not have been so lucrative. But still, Broner is a big name in boxing. Bigger name than Jeff Horn. A much bigger name than Jeff Horn. Even Lucas Batista is a bigger name than Jeff Horn. The resume and everything. Pacquiao should be in there with them. He should be in there with Jeff Horn. You know what I'm saying? Jeff Horn. Who is Jeff Horn, right? That's what everybody was saying. Like, who's Jeff Horn? And then Jeff Horn goes and upsets Pacquiao. And everybody's like, okay, that's Jeff Horn. You know what I mean? And Jeff Horn's resume is nothing like Thurman or Broner or Ugas. Even Ugas has a better resume than Jeff Horn. What's the next name on Jeff Horn's resume? Who has Jeff Horn beat besides Pacquiao? Nobody, right? He hasn't beaten a Broner, a Thurman, a Porter. At 160, he hasn't beaten a Munguia, a Charlo, a GGG. He hasn't beaten nobody. His only lone soul name on his resume is Pacquiao. JJ says Broner and Thurman are bigger names, but average B-level fighters at the time. Pacquiao fought him. No. Thurman's not a B-level fighter, bro. You go get your facts right. Thurman is an A-level fighter. Now Broner was B-level. I agree. At the time Pacquiao faced him, he was B-level. That's correct. But not Thurman. Not Thurman, bro. You're mixing up people. Thurman's A-level fighter. Still to this day, Thurman is an A-level fighter. He's susceptible to the body. He has a weakness. But he's A-level. So, you guys always talk about A-level, B-level, C-level. I'm going to explain to you guys what the different levels in boxing are because people misuse this stuff all the time. So I'm going to explain to you my understanding of it. When you talk about an A-plus level or A-level fighter, you're talking about a fighter who not only has the resume and has beaten top-level fighters consistently, but also is a fighter that can sell. So when you talk about an A-plus level fighter, you're talking guys like Miga Cotto, pay-per-view stars, Miga Cotto, Manny Pacquiao, Canelo Alvarez, Shane Mosley was on pay-per-view, Oscar De La Hoya was on pay-per-view. That is A-level. It's not only that you are a guy that's beating top guys consistently, but you can sell. You can sell out stadiums and stuff. So A-level fighter is usually the A side of negotiations. All right? That's an A-level fighter or A-plus level. And in case these guys are A-plus. And the reason I say plus is because they're pay-per-view stars. They're not just making that cash from the networks. They also pulling in pay-per-view money. That's A-plus level fighter. And their resume made them rise up to the status of A plus level. Now the A level fighter is like a Keith Thurman. Errol Spence is an A plus level fighter. Terrence Crawford is an A level fighter. He's not an A plus level because he can't sell pay per view for this shit. But hopefully, in time, he will sell pay per view with the right management. You have the right team around you. You understand what I'm saying? So, hold on a second. Let me just camera down properly. So when you talk about A level, my camera's kind of moving in. Hold on a second. Let me just try and break this up and start it back. Hold on a second. Oh, I'm breaking up. I'm just breaking up. All right. So A level. When we talk about A level in boxing, you got to understand it's the whole package. When we talk about an A level fighter and a B level fighter, we're not talking just about your fighting ability or position you face. Now, a B level fighter, generally the B side is in operation, of course. Even though they may be great fighters, they're the B side. They usually are dictated to because they can't sell art arenas. But even so, a B level fighter will fight guys on a certain level. So a B level fighter might have become a world champion, right? But he probably was just a titleist. But he never defended his title. He lost his next title, or he won titles maybe 2 times or whatever. So a B plus level fighter, for example, would have won maybe two-time world champion, but lost the title, get it, lose it, that kind of thing. Okay. So when we talk about A plus level, we're talking about legends. When we talk about A level, we're talking about great fighters or good fighters. Good fighters. When we talk about B level, we're talking about fighters who did the best they could. All right, and they lose the title, they gain it, they lose it. They didn't really defend the title much. So I'm gonna give you a B level fighter: Jesus Chavez, Carlos Hernandez from Floyd Mayweather's thing. A B level fighter like Berto. Berto's a B level fighter, 2-time world champion. Who else is a B level fighter? They don't stay at the top. They're not consistently at the top. Okay. Let me think some sort of B level fighter. Jesse Vargas is a B level fighter. Jesse Vargas is a B level fighter. Wins championships, but kind of lose. And you got B plus level and you got B level. B plus level is the guys who can sustain it a bit. So they probably multiple world champions a couple times, but they lost it. Now Zab Super Judah is a weird one. Right before, at the end of his career, he was B level, but when he was undisputed and when at certain points in his game, at certain points in time, he was A level. So sometimes a guy can go from A level to B level, right? I'd say Zab Judah's more A minus level fighter. You know what I mean? Because he had the super lightweight title for a good period of time. Then he lost to the Costa Zoo. Again, his attitude and behavior is what made him A minus level to B plus level. So he was at a B plus, A minus at a certain point, and then he went down from B to he really fell to B minus level. At the end of his career, it was like C level, which is sad. When you look at or C plus level, because he was just getting beat. You know what I'm saying? So different phases in a fighter's career. Okay, so you got B level fighters, and then you got C level fighters. C level fighters are like guys who didn't beat or may have beaten one big name in boxing, and maybe they lived there. Like Jeff Horn, for example. Jeff Horn, he beat Manny Pacquiao, right? He beat Manny Pacquiao, and then he beat some other guys. So, but Jeff Horn is probably a C plus B minus level fighter, C plus B minus level fighter, because he can't really sell out. He mostly fight in Australia, and he did fight 1 or 2 big names in Australia, but not worldwide, globally. The only guy he beat was Manny Pacquiao, so his name is built off of Manny Pacquiao, really. And he got washed by all the top level guys, showing he didn't even belong in that level. So he's about maybe a C plus. B minus level fighter. All right. So when you're talking about levels in boxing, you can't just talk about ability. You can't just talk about who they beat alone. You have to also talk about their putting butts in the seats. The guys who could sell fights. That's what make the top fighters. Because remember, you gotta understand, this is a competition, but it's professional boxing, which is a business. It's a business. You gotta understand that. And it's about time people understand boxing's always been a business. All right? That's why Jack Dempsey avoided Sam Langford. He avoided Sam Langford. Risk versus reward. That would have been a hell of a fight. That would have made a lot of money. Okay? A lot of money. Dempsey's an exciting style. Langford's an exciting style. That would have been a great fight. But Dempsey was like, risk versus reward. No matter how much money this ninja makes for me, it's a losing effort all around because I think I'm going to lose to him. I believe Dempsey didn't think he could beat Langford. And he said it, much to the same. He described Langford as a giant, and he literally said, that's a guy I didn't want to face at all. He was like, I ain't trying to mess with that dude. Risk versus risk. Okay? So Dempsey never even tried to face Langford. He never tried to face Harry Wills. He wasn't trying to mess with them dudes. Okay? Yeah. So I want you guys to understand that. Now, so Manny Pacquiao was never going to rematch Jeff Horn. He was never going to do that. That didn't make no sense. JJ said, I was talking about fighting level only before. But that's not how it works, though. You understand what I'm saying? That's not how it works. You can't talk about A level or B level or C level. Okay? You can't talk about that without excluding being an attraction. Who's the attraction? And of course, the attraction comes about because this guy has been spectacular and exciting and beating up people. Usually, you're winning fights. You're beating names. That's why you're attraction. Manny Pacquiao. What made Manny Pacquiao a household name? What made him pound for pound number one? What made him a cash cow was the fact that he beat and took Marco Antonio Barrera. That's his breakout fight. Eric Morales. Juan Manuel Marquez. Listen to the names. It's the names that made him. And then he jumps up from lightweight to welterweight doing this. He beat David Diaz. That's an Olympian. All right? And he was world champion. Oscar De La Hoya. Shit. The cash cow of boxing. I mean, Floyd took it from him, but the cash cow of boxing. That's a huge name. I don't care if he was weight drained or what. Nobody cares. Why? This is Oscar De La Hoya you're talking about. And he follows it up with Ricky the Hitman Hatton. Floyd knocked him out. Yeah, we know. But my point is, Hatton at 140 was undefeated. All right? And, I mean, Pacquiao smacked the spark out of him, right? Devastating KO. And then after that, he goes and he follows up with Miguel Cotto. This is what made Pacquiao. That's why he was pound for pound number one. Cotto. And I'm going to say this. That was a bad business decision on Cotto. Cotto's thinking, oh, this little guy, he can't do me nothing. I'm gonna do the catch weight. You don't do that. You don't do that in boxing. That was a poor decision on Cotto's part to do it at a catch weight. Knowing they're trying to drain your ass to fight Pacquiao. Because they know you a big welterweight. And that was the mistake Cotto made. And because Cotto, I'm gonna say this, I'm never gonna apologize. Cotto, to me, was the best fighter other than Floyd Mayweather in that era. Not Pacquiao. Pacquiao's phenomenal because he came up from flyweight all the way up to welterweight. Right? That's what makes Pacquiao phenomenal. But the best fighter other than Floyd Mayweather in Mayweather's era was Miguel Cotto. I'm going to say that without apology. And Cotto's the only guy I've ever seen in Floyd Mayweather's entire career give Floyd Mayweather tremendous problems. Tremendous problems. He pushed Floyd. In that 12th round when Floyd caught him with the uppercut and Cotto staggered and still kept coming, I knew Miguel Cotto's the goods. Right? So it wasn't surprising to me that Miguel Cotto won middleweight championship of the world. Wasn't surprising to me. All right. In Floyd Mayweather's era, not Emmanuel Burton, not Jesus Chavez, and Jesus Chavez was a hell of a fighter too. Not Jesus Chavez before he killed what's the kid's name? Livingston, I think it was. Livingston. Before he killed that dude, Jesus Chavez, nobody gives Jesus Chavez the credit, but I'm gonna say this right here on I hope people go and send this message back to Jesus Chavez in Texas. Jesus Chavez, you're a bad motherfucker. You was a bad motherfucker, okay? You one of the baddest men on the planet. And sadly, you don't get the recognition that you really deserve. That dude, Jesus Chavez, all right? Jesus Chavez was a bad boy. Bad boy. You know, people talk about Rocky Marciano because Rocky Marciano used to work the body. I'm going to talk about Rocky Marciano in my next segment. I'm going to talk y'all about Rocky Marciano and why Rocky Marciano was so great. Because a lot of y'all don't really study Rocky Marciano. You don't know much about Rocky Marciano. I'm going to tell you why Rocky Marciano was bad. He was a bad boy too. I'm going to talk about him. But first, I'm going to talk about Jesus Chavez. Jesus Chavez, listen people, go and look at the man's resume and who he knocked out. This dude used to flatline guys, mainly because he used to work the body. He break you down to the body first. Mexican fighter, break you down to the body and then come up top. He stopped fools. And anybody who survived that assault usually died. Okay? He'd kill you. He literally kill you in the ring. He was that bad. Now, Jesus Chavez anyway, man, was another bad motherfucker that pushed Floyd to the brink. And if Ronnie Shields did not pull Jesus Chavez from that fight, I'm going to tell y'all straight what I think. My opinion is somebody was going to die that night. Somebody was going to die in the ring that night. Somebody was going to die. Because Jesus Chavez has no off switch. At least the Jesus Chavez that I know. He just keep coming. That ninja just keep coming. You know what's that? You hit a guy with your money punch and he's still coming? He's coming? That's Rocky Marciano too. The mindset of Jesus Chavez. Oh my God. All right. So anyway, the baddest guy though I thought that ever faced Floyd Mayweather is Miguel Cotto. Miguel Cotto just kept coming. Floyd hit him with a knockout punch, a knockout uppercut punch, and Cotto still kept coming. Cotto still kept coming. He brought it from, but unfortunately for Cotto, and I have a lot of respect for Cotto, by the way, if y'all haven't realized. The unfortunate thing for Cotto was he only caught on to Floyd's rhythm by around round 5, round 6. So when Cotto started pouring it on and winning rounds and busting up Floyd's nose and stuff and playing mind games with Floyd and flipping the switch back on Floyd, it was kind of late into the fight. Even though he was coming up. He had won 4 rounds straight. He had won round 5, and then he won round 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And in the 12th round, Floyd just turned on the juice. He turned on the juice on Cotto. He fought him back. And almost dropped him, actually, with the uppercut. But Cotto just kept on coming on it. And Cotto physically was bigger than Floyd. You could see, and he used his size against Floyd. I love how he fought. Man, Cotto did a full package on you. I'm telling you, man, there ain't nobody that could touch Cotto. You know, I mean, Pacquiao knocked him out. All right, let's be real. He stopped him, right? I mean, it was a stoppage. I mean, Kenny Bayless, you could have let that fight go to the finish. Cotto and Pacquiao was watching at you like, what? You just gonna stop the fight now? Both Cotto and Pacquiao was watching it. Kenny Bayless like, what? Because it was in the middle of a transaction, and Kenny Bayless just jumped in the middle, and Cotto. You have to watch this. The facial expression on both of them is priceless. Pacquiao, watch it. You know when a referee breaks up fighters, and in the middle of an intense exchange, the fighters, they kind of get disoriented. So they look at the referee like, huh? It's really funny. It's hilarious. But, you know, that fight could have gone to the finish line, but Pacquiao still was going to win, right? I think even a full-fledged Cotto would have had his hands full. Even if he was fully hydrated, he would have had his hands full with Pacquiao. You know, I think Pacquiao might have still beat him, right? Because styles make fights, right? But Cotto was giving Pacquiao as good as Pacquiao was getting, so you never know. Because Cotto could take a shot. Like, full-fledged Cotto, Y'all go watch Zab Judah versus Miga Cotto. Go watch Zab Judah versus Miga Cotto. Full-fledged Cotto walked through anything. He walked through your shots like it's nothing. You saw what Floyd was teeing off on him and stuff, and he was walking through that shit. Cotto ain't joke strong, man. Cotto, I mean, I'm very impressed with Cotto. Cause he could box, he could parry away shots and shit while he's still walking. He walking you down like this, hands up, and he's parry, and he goes southpaw on you, bam. You know what I'm saying? Ah, man, I love Cotto. But man, I'm disappointed that in the negotiations, Cotto conceded so much. It's particularly with weight. You don't concede with weight because that weight, it takes away some of your strength. That's why Pacquiao dropped him, because nobody drops Cotto. Nobody drops Cotto. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Torres dropped him. And another guy, Abdullah Left or whatever, dropped him. But he boxes your ass, and then he comes back and he bullies you. Cotto's a bad boy, man. He can box, too. I have a lot of respect for Cotto. What level do you think Thurman was when he fought Barrios and Pacquiao? Okay, so Thurman that fought Pacquiao was A level. A little rusty, but he got some of the cobwebs off when he faced Josecito Lopez, who Berto, by the way, knocked out. He dropped Josecito Lopez early, but then Lopez had him in trouble in the 7th, I think it was. But more or less a flawless performance. And then Thurman versus Barrios. He got some work to do. And again, he shows his vulnerabilities to the body. That is his weakness. You hit him with a well-placed, well-timed body shot to the liver, to the solar plexus, and he folds, man. And he showed that with Collazo. The first guy we saw that with was Collazo. Collazo exposed that flaw. And no matter what Thurman says, he is susceptible to body shots. All right, we saw even with Sean Porter when Sean Porter got him to the ropes because he hit him a body shot. So you work the body, and Errol Spence is a body puncher. I don't think you want to get in there with Errol. If you work the body on Thurman, you get him in all kinds of trouble, and he will start to box and try to just be more evasive with you. You're probably not going to stop Thurman just like that. You can't. He's too big. He's too strong. Elite training, very unpredictable, unorthodox in and out action. Beautiful combinations. He arcs his shots a little too much. Sometimes you shoot it straight, though. Against Pacquiao, shoots. I'm just saying, he's an A-level fighter. He's an A-level fighter. And the reason Thurman's an A-level fighter, Thurman sells, man. Thurman sells. The pay-per-view for Pacquiao versus Thurman, I think, was 500,000 pay-per-views. He sells. Or was it 600,000, 700,000, something like that? The highest pay-per-views other than Floyd Mayweather that year. So no, Thurman's an A-level fighter, for sure. He only in big fights. His ratings are very high. So he's an A-level fighter. But he has flaws. And you can exploit them. And again, these flaws have always been there. Pacquiao has flaws, Pacquiao has flaws, but again, Pacquiao is A+ level fighter. You know what I'm saying? You have to talk about the drawing power. You have to. If you're talking excessively about fighting level, what level fighter do you think Thurman was when he fought Pacquiao and Barrios? You have a wicked laugh, bro. Jake Paul is a level fighter too. Jake Paul he's not an A-level fighter because he ain't faced nobody. He ain't faced nobody in boxing. Who's he faced that's a boxer that's a top-level boxer, though? See, it's like I said before, it's resume, right? It's resume which will show your abilities, and it's drawing power. It's not just drawing power. Who has Jake Paul faced that's a boxer? Name the boxer that he faced. I'm waiting. He's only faced debutants, right? Yeah, but again, I said it. Drawing power is not everything, right? We said it's resume and drawing power. Didn't we say that? So where's his resume? You got to have a resume, right? So what's his resume? Who'd he face? Who'd he beat that make him A-level? Yeah. So you have to look at both. It's not just one thing. And Jake Paul. Okay, so let's get this right. Jake Paul is doing what we call celebrity boxing, right? He making money off of celebrity boxing. And in one of the groups, I try to get people to understand the difference between pro boxing or a pro boxing event and a sideshow. A sideshow. So you got boxing has rules for both. Okay? Floyd had an exhibition. He had an exhibition with Logan Paul. Made a ton of money. It's an exhibition. Once you say exhibition, that's a sideshow. Yeah? A sideshow. Okay? Julio Cesar Chavez versus, what's the little kid name? His name is. Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. had a number of exhibitions. People paid to see them, but it's sideshows. Now, professional boxing championship events like Spence versus Ugas, like Tyson Fury versus Dillian White, or like what's another championship fight that's coming up? Give me another championship fight, man. Devin Haney versus Kambosos, right? Those are pro boxing events, right? So we talking pro boxing. We're not talking sideshows, okay? Jake Paul versus anybody who's not, it don't matter if they pro boxer or not. If it's not a championship event, if it's not some top tier, high level quality fighter, it's a sideshow. And there's a place for sideshows, and there's a place for pro boxing, real competition, right? Think of it like this. You can have celebrity football matches, right? But you don't take that as seriously as, say, the Super Bowl. You don't, right? So it's the same thing. So when we talk about Jake Paul, we're not talking about Jake Paul as in a top level pro boxing event. We're talking about Jake Paul, even though he is a pro boxer, in a celebrity category. This is celebrity boxing. Yeah, that makes sense? Right? Yeah, that makes sense? Right? When you talk about Floyd Mayweather versus somebody in an exhibition, we're talking about celebrity, or we're talking about a sideshow. You got it? Floyd versus Conor McGregor. Pro boxing event, yeah, but a sideshow. Why? Because, look, Conor McGregor may be a great MMA fighter, but he ain't a great pro boxer. Yeah? So we cannot put that in the same category as a pro boxing event, right? A championship pro boxing event. It wasn't even a championship fight. They had some kind of WBC money belt or some shit like that. WBC wanted to make some money off of it. But at the end of the day, Mayweather versus Conor McGregor was a sideshow. You gotta understand the difference. But Mayweather versus Andre Berto was a pro boxing event. Yeah, you got it? So that's the difference. All right? And you can have sideshows that make a lot of money. But the reason the sideshow even makes a lot of money is because the people who participate in the sideshow have built a name for themselves. Yeah? So, for example, Tyron Woodley versus Jake Paul, the reason why that made so much money, one, Jake Paul is a well-known YouTuber who is now participating in boxing and winning, and he has an undefeated streak, and he's a prospect in boxing right now, right? He's a prospect. He's what, 4-0 or something like that, 5-0, 5-0 prospect, undefeated, but hasn't faced yet a pro boxer, neither debutant pro boxer or otherwise. Okay, I mean Anthony Gibb was a pro boxer, a debutant, so he did face one debutant, but he hasn't faced a prospect, right? So and then but he made a name for himself, right? Because he started off in YouTube pro boxing, right? So he made a name for himself with the YouTube boxing. And then Tyron Woodley He's not a pro boxer, but he made a name for himself in the UFC. So when you bring two names together, right, who could do a little something, right, you get a celebrity event. All right? It's not mainstream boxing. Mainstream boxing is something different. This is something special. This is a sideshow, which stimulates people's curiosity. Mayweather versus Conor McGregor. Something that Roy Jones Jr. wanted to do with Anderson Silva, who has proven, Anderson Silva is proving that he is a quality pro boxer because he beat a two-time world champion in Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. He beat him. That's a pro boxer he beat. A former world champion. So you have to take Anderson Silva seriously. Roy Jones Jr. wanted to face Anderson Silva for years. And I hope that at least Roy gets his wish at some point. Okay? Because that would be a good fight. Roy would beat his ass. I don't care how in shape or out of shape Roy is. Roy will always beat his ass. Because Roy is just, he got so much knowledge. You understand what I'm saying? I saw Roy hang with Mike Tyson. So I know Roy could beat him. Anderson Silva. I know he can beat him. But it'll be an exhibition probably. And it'll be what it is. It won't be a pro fight. They're too old for that now. But the honor of Anderson Silva sharing the ring with Roy Jones Jr. would be great. Okay, Anderson Silva is 40-something years old. Okay? Now, that's not, even though Anderson Silva faced a former middleweight world champion in Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., that's not no top-tier boxing event. It's not a championship boxing event. It's not a top-caliber boxing event. Okay, because Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. is not a top-caliber fighter right now. All right? But it was part of a sideshow event, which featured Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. versus, I forgot what the guy's name is for some reason. Great fighter, by the way, that I'm talking about. I just forgot his name. It's just blasphemy. All right? So, my point is, Jake Paul don't got no resume. You know, he has not beaten world champions in the boxing arena. He is not an A-level fighter. All right? To be an A-level fighter, you got to have the resume. You got to have, what made you an A-level fighter was the fact that you beat all these world champions or these great fighters or these top fighters. That's what makes you an A-level fighter. Not just that you sell tickets. Hold on one second. It's going to be a classic idiot right now. Going to make a whole set of noise.
Seconds out. It's 6 matches for 100. Massive seem to be. Yes, customers.
Okay. That's just what it is, man. It is what it is. I'm going to get disturbed every now and then. So, that's what A-level fighters are. So, when you say that, somebody was a B-level fighter or C-level fighter, you say somebody was Keith Thurman? Keith Thurman's not a B-level fighter, okay? He sells, and he got names behind him, all right? And even though he got beaten by Pacquiao legend. Pacquiao's a legend. Yeah, 40-year-old beat him. That's right. But he's still a legend, and that's what makes Pacquiao a legend. And this is another thing I want to talk about. Everybody always talk about boxers in their prime. First of all, I don't think anybody knows what prime is. Most people do not define prime properly. I'll explain to you what I believe a prime fighter is. Tell me if you agree or disagree. A prime fighter has all of his physical abilities. Okay, all of his physical abilities. That's what makes him prime. 2, he also has all of his mental faculties. All right? So a fighter's in his prime when physically he's capable of doing all kinds of things, and you see it in the ring. And then mentally, because boxing is more mental than physical, he's firing on all cylinders. Now, what does that mean? Because a lot of people, you can lose fights in your prime. All right? But it's the potential that's in you that you see, everybody's seeing, that tells me you're in prime. But a boxer, once you're in boxing, you continue to learn and grow. So to tell me that a fighter's only in his prime because he's fighting smarter than he used to fight before isn't saying much, because that doesn't mean you're in your prime. You could be smart all the way out of your prime. Okay? So getting smarter or more knowledgeable in the sport has nothing to do necessarily with your prime. What mostly has to do with your prime is your abilities. In your prime, your abilities are at their peak or their maximum. Well, not their maximum. Your physical abilities are at their maximum, for sure. But your mental abilities, there's a lot of potential there. So, I'm going to use Floyd Mayweather as an example. I'm going to use Manny Pacquiao as an example, too. Floyd Mayweather was in his physical prime when he was Pretty Boy Floyd. Mentally, he was also in his prime in the sense that he was capable of mentally doing anything, the possibilities. All right? But it doesn't mean he was a smarter fighter in his prime than he was out of his prime. Okay? Mayweather's prime was from 1998 when he beat Junior Hernandez all the way down to 2007 when he beat Ricky Hatton. He was in his prime. Okay? Mayweather was known as a power puncher, and he could knock you out with either hand, and he used to beat you down, get you out of there, right? That was what Mayweather was. So his prime weight, for those of you who don't know, prime weight is something different. It doesn't mean you're not in your prime just because you're not in your prime weight. But your prime weight, which is the weight where he really looked the best in his career, was at 140, where he just assassinated Ricky Hatton. Not Ricky Hatton, sorry. He assassinated Arturo Gatti, and he beat down Henry Brocellus. All right? And he knocked down multiple times DeMarcus Chop Chop Corley. He only had three fights at junior welterweight or super lightweight. But at that 140 pounds, he was at his most dominant, most aggressive, most brutal. Okay? The savage beating that Gatti took was just ridiculous. Right? That was where you saw him at his peak prime performance. Okay? He was 140. And he's a 140 pounder. Okay? Manny Pacquiao, just to give you all the guys an example. So after that, he tapered off. He started to fall off after Arturo Gatti, as he even admits. His hands was breaking down, whatever. And the last prime performance you ever saw from Floyd Mayweather was when he became Money Mayweather, was against Ricky Hatton. Okay? When he faced Ricky Hatton and he stopped Ricky Hatton going backwards, and you saw him chopping up Ricky Hatton on the inside and all that, that was one of the better performances that he had in his career. And that was the last time you saw a prime Floyd Mayweather. When you saw him against Juan Manuel Marquez, he was pot-shotting and stepping around, beautiful stepping around work and stuff, but his hands, he wasn't doing what he was doing against Ricky Hatton. He should have been able to stop Juan Manuel Marquez. He couldn't stop him. Okay? Against Shane Mosley, same thing. He couldn't stop Shane Mosley. He was throwing one or two combinations, but he wasn't throwing as many combinations as Pretty Boy Floyd used to throw. Right? And his lateral movement was not like how Pretty Boy's lateral movement was. And you could say, well, the level of competition in his post-prime years was higher and it was bigger guys. You could say all of that too. But he had power and he could have stopped guys. I know he could have stopped Robert Guerrero for sure. He could have got him out of there, but his hands wasn't good enough. I think he could have stopped Marcos Maidana in the second Marcos Maidana fight. He didn't look to do that. When he took control over Manny Pacquiao, he did not sustain that control. I looked at the Miga Cotto fight. I thought he fought his ass off in that fight, but he took a lot of punishment in that Miga Cotto fight. I know it was a toe-to-toe brawl, but it wasn't the same dominant performance I saw against DeMarcus Chop Chop Corley. And the reason was, again, he's decaying as a fighter. We're watching Floyd Mayweather decay in front of our eyes. The Berto fight totally showed us the picture that his hands was going through. You know, he was tagging up Berto with all kinds of shots, and it was unfazed. Berto was unfazed by them shots. His hands was going through by that point. And even his lateral movement, he was missing a lot of shots and stuff like that. You could see he totally decayed. This is a 38-year-old man, all right? So, even, I remember Stephen A. Smith saying, based on the Berto performance, I don't think he can. And then we just saw him against Conor McGregor, and he was walking down Conor McGregor, and everybody said, this Floyd has decayed quite a lot. You know, he can't face the top tier opponents doing that. And then we just saw him against Logan Paul, much bigger fighter, but again, not much experience in boxing. He could put away Logan Paul, right? So, and I know it's a bigger guy, but still, skills pay the bills. He should have been able to stop Logan Paul. So you could tell that Pretty Boy Floyd would have stopped Logan Paul. Pretty Boy Floyd would have stopped Conor McGregor much faster, right? And Floyd said he carried him, but still, Pretty Boy Floyd would have wiped the mat with, because he put combinations together, and the footwork was much better. You know, he sprinted to the side, whap, 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 right? So if you see, so Floyd's prime was from 1998 to 2007. The Floyd that came back after he retired because his hands and shoulders were so bad and he needed a break. That Floyd was a different Floyd. Okay, it was a different Floyd. Okay, and he fought differently. He pot shot a lot more. You could see him step around. You could see he see the shot, but he not throwing the shot because hands, arms, shoulders. He's, you know, when you get a guy hurt, he don't get him out of there. He not killer instinct because of hands, shoulders. He's just like, man, I could win this fight off of points. I could just stick and move or work the guy on the inside. But he's not trying to shot. And nobody pushed him to the point. I mean, Victor Ortiz tried to do something and then he just whop, whop. He knocked him out. Victor Ortiz quit. If Victor Ortiz had just stayed with it, you know, put his hands up and start keep on fighting, but you could tell he didn't want to fight no more. But maybe Victor Ortiz might have pushed him because Victor Ortiz could hit like a fucking Mack truck, man. He just couldn't land nothing clean on Floyd, but he can hit. You know, people forget that the Victor Ortiz that ran through Andrew Berto, the Victor Ortiz that ran through, beat up Lamont Peterson, and Peterson came back. Y'all forget what Victor Ortiz really was, which is sad. You know, and the boy could box too. You know, y'all remember the Marcos Maidana fight. But y'all forget that Victor Ortiz dropped Marcos Maidana 3 times. Marcos Maidana dropped Victor Ortiz twice. Okay? Ortiz could punch. I would have loved to see what would have happened if Ortiz had just pushed on and said, you know what, I'm going to go hard at this dude, like how Marcos Maidana did, and not quit. He quit, you know. But I think Floyd was chopping him up anyway. But still, he was taking some of the punishment. He was taking some of the punches. I wanted to see if he would have quit or either gone all the way to the end. Maybe put some heat on Floyd. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? He was bigger. He was stronger. He should have used his size. He should have bullied him around. Well, it was kind of hard to do, but still, nonetheless, he tried. You know, and he put him a number of times. But my point anyway is prime. Let's talk about that, and then let's get into what we really want to say. So the prime of a fighter is when they have maximum abilities, and it's usually physical abilities, but also we have to think about is the mind clear. It doesn't mean they're fighting smarter. Now, Floyd fought smarter in 2009 and onwards because his hands. So he had to be very, very accurate with his punches and how he was placing them, and he had to be very selective. He kind of had to be economical. If you push him, he gonna let him hands go, right? And we saw that in the Ricky Hatton fight. You push him. He realized he couldn't stick and move with Ricky Hatton. He had to go inside there and trade with him. So he started going inside and trading, and he went to the body and chopped him up, right? So you push Floyd. If you push him, he going to stop you, right? And it's so weird because if you ever watch footage in the gym, when he's training in the gym, he's like a beast. He even stopped fighters in the gym. But when he comes out to do the performance under the lights, he's very controlled. He's very selective. He's very calculated. And it's almost like he don't want to knock out the fighter. It's almost like you get that feeling he don't want to knock the guy out. He just want to appoint him, you know, beat him up, make sure the judges get that, and just have a crisp, clean fight where the guy can't even touch him. You know what I'm saying? But don't get it twisted. You know, if he flip modes and he's deciding you push him to fight you, he's gonna fight you, right? And it'll only bring out the best in him. So but you got to get. You see, not many fighters could push Floyd. I mean, Marcos Maidana pushed him. And you saw him fighting Marcos Maidana. The first fight was a fight. It wasn't no boxing match, right? They was trading shots and it was going hard. Okay, so he fought Marcos Maidana. He fought Mika Cotto, right? He fought them. He fought Ricky Hatton. He fought DeMarcus Corley. You push him, you're gonna make him fight you, and he will. He can fight. He can fucking fight. Okay, if there's one thing he can do, he can fight. He can box and he can fight. He mix it up. So. But the point is, in your prime, doesn't mean that you're smart. So like a lot of people say, oh, Canelo wasn't in his prime when he faced Floyd. That's stupid. Of course he was in his prime. He was in his prime since he won the championship against Matthew Hatton. How we know he's in prime? Ain't no non-prime fighter. Well, there are non-prime fighters who become world champion, but it's a level To become a world champion is a level in boxing. It's a high level in boxing. You can't just become world champion like that. That's the second highest level in boxing. The only level above champion is legend. Okay? The only level above champion that is. That means to become a champion, you have to win a title, which makes you a titleist, and then you have to defend it. And if you've defended your title, you've become a champion. But to become a legend means you consistently defend it, the championship, or you may have lost some fights, but you come back and you beat big fighters, you beat legendary fighters, and you continue to become world champion. You may not be champion all the time, but you're champion more, like Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao been champion in 4 separate decades. Not consistently, he wasn't champion all the way through 4 decades, but he was champion in each of 4 decades. Ain't nobody else ever done that. As far as my homework in boxing history, I haven't seen anybody else who has been that. That's remarkable. That's longevity right there. Okay, but getting back to the point of prime doesn't mean that because you're in your prime, it means that you're the smartest guy and you're performing at the highest level all the time. That's not what it means. All it means is your potential, your mental clarity, and your physical abilities are fully actualized, meaning you're capable of doing all the things like throwing the hooks and moving, throwing combinations, knocking out guys, all of that stuff. You're able to do all of that. That's when you're in your prime. If you're a knockout artist. If you're not a knockout artist, or you're not a guy who's a puncher, then you outbox guys, and you got good footwork, whatever it is. Or you're good at walking down guys, whatever it is that you're good at, you're doing it, and it's fully actualized. Win, lose, or draw. That's what it means to be in a prime. When you cease to start to do those things, Canelo is moving out of his prime. People feel he's in his prime, and he's at the peak of his prime. He's not in the peak of his prime at all, physically. Because I see he has knee injuries. All right? And this is where people don't understand. So they think, because the performances are so good, they think that the guy's in his prime. He's not in his prime. Canelo's not in his full-fledged prime anymore. He's peaked out already. In terms of his physical capabilities and his mental knowledge and his mental capabilities. He's peaked out already. But he's smarter. He's fighting smarter. And that's what a lot of people don't. That Canelo used to throw a lot of combinations. And he started pot shotting. And he started using precise footwork. So he's fighting smarter. But his abilities have somewhat diminished from what he used to have. You understand what I'm saying? So, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. So you could have a veteran of the sport. Canelo's a veteran of the sport. But he still has certain capabilities, physically speaking. And on top of that, he's fighting a lot smarter. You see, he's fighting a lot smarter. So people feel because he's getting better and better performances against certain kinds of fighters, not all kinds of fighters, but certain kinds of fighters, he's doing better, that he's in his physical prime peak, but he's not. Physically, he's not in his physical prime peak. That has passed already. And Canelo now is so good at what he does well, just like when Floyd was very good at what he does well, he focused on what he did well, that he's giving you the illusion that his prime keeps on going because he keeps on putting a certain level of performance. But really and truly, Floyd was decaying. He was decaying quite a lot. His hands were atrophying a lot. His lateral movement started to decline. All right, he was more rigid in his lateral movement than fluid. All you got to do is look at Pretty Boy Floyd and how he moved compared to what. Think of Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, when he was younger, he sprang like a goat, jump up in the air. As soon as he started getting older, it became more mechanical and he was more rigid. And even though he's dunking, you're not really getting that. You're getting the hang time. He's still working on his stuff. You can see he's still elastic. He's doing some incredible things, even more incredible things than he was younger. But he don't got that spring anymore. He ain't got that spring like the young Michael Jordan. You get what I'm saying? And that's the difference. So your natural ability started to decrease. Your flexibility, your fluid motion starts to decrease. And you're more rehearsed. You're sharp, but you're more rehearsed. And you can tell when a fighter's out of their prime. Because the physical prime kind of indicates that now they have to use other variables. And so Roy Jones Jr. is a perfect example of a prime fighter and an out of prime fighter. And a lot of people now, you see, they think that when you start losing your reaction time and all these things, that you're out of your prime, and that means therefore you decay as a fighter and you're not as good as when you're in your prime, because a lot of people focus on the physical attributes in the prime, and those are the first things to go, not so much the mental attributes, unless you being punch drunk and guys really beat you up really bad and you get punch drunk, and therefore you're not there anymore, right? Or you lose focus. You lose focus as a fighter, and you focus on other things, drinking, smoking, women, whatever. You think you've reached, and therefore you start losing fights, and you're no longer in your prime. All right. So when we talk about mental attributes, mean you're all together there, and you're still focused, and you're still fueled. That's what we mean when we take mental. When we talk physical, it's your abilities, what you can do in the ring, what kind of punches you can throw, how you move in the ring, etc., etc. Okay. It's not smartness. Every fighter should be getting smarter and smarter as they acquire more experience. So when people say Canelo wasn't in his prime when he faced Floyd Mayweather, that's bullshit. You just dismiss that. You'd be like, no, he was collective. He had all his faculties. He was focused. He was talking about I was born ready and all that shit. Okay, so he was in his prime. All right, he was what, 7-time world champion, unified world champion. Come on, man. Of course he was in his prime. Okay, but today he's still in his prime as well. And another thing people need to understand is, what's the beginning of your prime, what's the middle of your prime, or what's the end of your prime? Okay, because your prime has 3 segments in it. The beginning of your prime is when you step into it. So Canelo didn't have the kind of experience, because experience played the major key, that he had in the middle of his prime post Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather gave Canelo so much download of information that makes Canelo such a better fighter. Even though Canelo still has tough fights with fighters of Floyd's caliber, slick fighters. And just very recently, you see he had great difficulty with Caleb Plant. He wasn't really touching Caleb Plant, as you could tell, all right, as the fight went along. But then he caught him. He finally caught up to him. He hit him a body shot in the 10th round, and Caleb Plant felt. And Caleb Plant made a mistake trying to block the shot, the leaping left hook that Canelo hit him with. And then he followed it up with an uppercut that just discombobulated Caleb Plant. And Caleb Plant didn't know what to do once he got hurt. So he rose up too early and all kinds of stupid things he did. He should just take a knee, brace himself, and then try and get back up. Bounce around, let the referee hold his gloves, clear cobwebs from his head. He was still spinning, obviously, as he staggered across the ring. He was still spinning from popping up from that shot. He didn't allow himself to recoup. Timothy Bradley got that experience. Caleb Plant didn't have it. But it wasn't for that. Caleb Plant was doing very well in the fight. Very well. You know what I'm saying? And another fighter that gave Canelo a lot of problems, early at least, was Erislandy Lara. And let's not forget Danny Jacobs. Danny Jacobs, once he got Canelo's rhythm, was starting to do very well in the fight against Canelo. He even hit him with a money punch. Canelo took it, but he hit him with a money punch later on in the fight. Danny Jacobs took the later rounds. Canelo took the earlier rounds, right? So Canelo kind of has difficulty still with that style of Floyd Mayweather. And so what I'm trying to say is, yes, he grew as a fighter, and he has little wrinkles and stuff to his game, but is it to the extent that if a guy like Dimitri Bivol, for example, faces Canelo, will he be able to handle a Dimitri Bivol? We will see. Dimitri Bivol has certain attributes that Lomachenko has, that Alexander Usyk has, which makes him a very difficult fighter, and I think he's better than Usyk, and I think he's better than Lomachenko. We'll see. I mean, if Bivol shows up to that fight, as how Bivol should, he'll win. You know why? Footwork. It's where you put your feet. Feints. You know, Canelo's a very smart fighter, but one of the things he don't have, I can tell you this for a fact, is he don't have continual footwork cardio. He doesn't have proper cardio for his footwork. He can't just keep on moving his feet nonstop and quickly at a regular rate. You know, quickly doing the little chips, and he don't have that. That's why he used precise footwork. Precise footwork allow you to be in a different plane, and you're inching in on your opponent and using feints and stuff. You can't do that with Dimitri Bivol. He knows about that. He knows about that. So, and he's big, he's strong, he punches, got punching power. So, I mean, Canelo he's taking on a good one, and I don't know how Canelo gonna beat him. I don't know. I don't see it. But if Canelo could show me something, that'd be great. Just don't rub Bivol. I just don't see Canelo beating Bivol. I don't see him stopping Bivol even. But again, people say, Floyd beat a young Canelo. Okay, well, here's Bivol. Let's see. And Bivol is not a fighter like Floyd in that he's not necessarily going to fight Canelo. How do I put this? He's not going to fight Canelo. He's not going to in-fight Canelo. He'll fight him at mid-range, just like how Floyd fight Canelo at mid-range. He's going to have an answer because he's a counterpuncher. Canelo's going to have some answers to Bivol as well. But I just don't see it. I don't see how Canelo's going to beat Bivol. Y'all going to have to explain that one to me. And people saying because Canelo's on a roll, well, that had to do with anything. Styles make fights, man. And the fighter that he's facing, is a European fighter. But I don't see it, man. Caleb Plant gave him too much problems for him to just roll up on Bivol and beat Bivol. I just don't see it. I mean, he's going to keep his composure. He learned how to keep his composure. But Bivol keeps his composure. So I don't know, man. Bivol got a lot of experience, facing some of them top guys. I just don't see it. I don't see it. I mean, y'all going to have to help me with that one. So I'm picking Bivol to beat Canelo once Bivol shows up as Bivol. I haven't beaten Canelo because I don't think that Canelo evolved that much with Floyd. He still get difficulty with guys who have good footwork. Good footwork. I'm not talking about guys who move excessively in the ring. I'm talking about good footwork. Because Floyd didn't move excessively in the ring. And know how to use them pivots. It's going to be a hard night for Canelo. And maybe he gets the decision, maybe he doesn't. But I think this is going to a decision. Ain't nobody knocking out Canelo. He got too good a defense. He got good head movement and stuff too, but I just don't see him beating Canelo. I don't see Canelo beating Bivol. I just don't see it. Well, I mean, maybe I'm seeing flaws in Bivol. I know there's certain things that Bivol don't do. He don't always initiate. He looked to counter. He's cautious. He looked to counter you more than he initiate. Bivol will need to initiate in here and set traps. So I don't know, man. We will see. And maybe Canelo beats him on that. I don't know. But point is prime. So first of all, you gotta understand what prime is, okay? You gotta understand what prime is, because if you don't understand what prime is, we can't really have a proper conversation about you can't have a proper conversation about level of fighter and guys in their post prime, okay? So here's the thing. What you're gonna notice about Floyd, Marquez, Mosley, Pacquiao is prime didn't really apply to them. These fighters continuously at Bernard Hopkins, Sergio Martinez. These fighters were fighting all the way up to 38, 40s. They were fighting in their 40s and beating prime fighters. All right? Let's talk about Manuel Marquez. Super featherweight lineal champion beating Joel Casamayor, knocking him out. And he's how old? 33, 34? Oscar De La Hoya at 34 was facing Floyd Mayweather at 30, and people were calling him old. Let's go. Marquez then goes up to lightweight. At the age of 35, this man is unified champion, beating Juan Diaz. Juan Diaz was the top lightweight at a certain point in the division. Unified champion. Juan Diaz thinks he's going to fight an old man, and he says, I'm fighting this old man. He was beating his ass early in the fight, and then Marquez comes back to stop him. Not to beat him, to stop him. Not outpoint him, stop him. At 35 years of age. He's nowhere in his prime. Nowhere. Go watch the prime Marquez and how he used to move. And yet prime Marquez did not perform as well as old ass Marquez. As later on in his career, Marquez really built a name for himself. Okay? When he was 33, 34, 35. Not in his 20s. In his 20s, Marquez couldn't get a big fight. And he was losing, controversially sometimes, to guys like Chris John. And I forgot what the black dude was name. Right? He knocked down the guy twice. The guy knocked him down twice. And he still lost the fight. It is what it is. He's coming to me. His name's coming to me and it disappeared. And these are great fighters I'm talking about. So Marquez never really got that big shot because he had some L's on his resume. Close fights, but he still get the L. You know what I'm saying? He was in his prime. When he stepped out of his prime, he started really doing some great things. So listen to me about Marquez, and this is why I said these guys are exceptional. Marquez, at the age of 35, becomes lightweight unified champion, lineal champion. All right, he's the best lightweight in the division. All right, best lightweight in the division. 35 years old. You tell me there's no prime fighter that could challenge Marquez and beat him? Jumps up. He's pound for pound number 2 in the world. Manny Pacquiao, at the age of, I think it was 30, was pound for pound number 1 or 28 or 29, whatever he was. Marquez calls out Pacquiao. Pacquiao says he's going to face Mika Cotto. So Marquez ends up facing Floyd Mayweather. He calls out Floyd Mayweather. He says, Pacquiao don't want to face me, and he pound for pound king. I'm pound for pound number 2 in the world. It should have been pound for pound versus pound for pound number 2. He don't want to face me, right? So I'm going to call out Floyd Mayweather, the former pound for pound number 1 fighter in the world. That's how Marquez faced Floyd. Marquez was 36 years old when he faced Floyd Mayweather. What are you going to say? Floyd facing old Marquez. No, because he's lightweight world champion. So what they say? They say Floyd facing a small guy. Here's the joke. I'm gonna give y'all some history. Sugar Ray Robinson, when he faced Sammy Angut the second time, Sugar Ray Robinson outweighed Sammy Angut. Sammy Angut, first of all, was a lightweight world champion. Sammy Angut used to face welterweights. And it's an honor to get Sammy Angut on your resume. Sugar Ray Robinson faced Sammy Angut, when Sammy Angut was the lightweight world champion at welterweight. Nobody talks about that. Oh, Sugar Ray Robinson jabbed Sammy Angut up to welterweight to face him. No! He jumped from lightweight to welterweight, fought a welterweight. Okay? But people praise Sammy Angut and Sugar Ray Robinson for that fight. I'm going to give y'all another one. The great Salvador Sanchez fought Gomez. Gomez was a great bantamweight, super bantamweight champion. He jumped up to featherweight to face Sanchez. All right? Nobody gives Sanchez flack for beating a smaller guy in Gomez. Nobody. I'm going to give y'all another one because I got plenty. Marvelous Marvin Hagler was a middleweight champion of the world. Sugar Ray Leonard was a freaking welterweight. Leonard jumps up to middleweight and faces big ass Marvin Hagler. Nobody gives Marvin Hagler flack for facing little ass Sugar Ray Leonard. He doesn't say Hagler dragged Leonard up to, why didn't Hagler go down to welterweight and fight? No. So why is it when Juan Manuel Marquez, who is a lightweight, jumps up to welterweight to face Floyd Mayweather, we're not praising Marquez for wanting to make that effort to get that transition? No, we're driving Mayweather into the mud. Oh, all of a sudden the rules just don't apply to Mayweather, right? Mayweather, he can't face little ass Marquez. What is that supposed to mean? You understand what I'm saying? Marquez was 36 years old when he faced Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather was 32 or 33. I can't remember which one it is. It's 32 or 33. I think he was 33. He turned 33. He was 33 years old when he faced, or 32 years old, something like that, when he faced Juan Manuel Marquez. Mayweather was out of his prime. Marquez was out of his prime. And we still had this spectacular fight. Marquez comes back from that loss, because he got lost and he got dropped. Even though he tagged Mayweather with a couple good shots. It wasn't competitive. Right? People talk about the catch weight. Oh, Mayweather didn't. Okay, well, whatever. He didn't use his weight against Marquez. He was boxing around him. Marquez was the one pressing the action for most of the fight. So what does it matter? But anyway, at the end of the day, Marquez comes back from that and beats Juan Diaz again. He goes back down to lightweight and beats Juan Diaz. Goes up to I think he faces Pacquiao. He jumps up to welterweight after that. And he faces Pacquiao at catchweight, same catchweight. And loses a split decision to Manny Pacquiao. Most people thought Marquez won the fight. He jumped. Listen to me, man. Listen to me what I'm saying. He was 37 years old. Okay? Goes down to super lightweight. Beats Senchenko and becomes super lightweight champion of the world. Goes back up to welterweight and knocks out Manny Pacquiao. And he is 38 years old when he does that. At 39 years old, this ninja is fighting Timothy Bradley to a split decision loss. At 40, these are astronomical numbers. At 40 years old, he's facing Mike Alvarez and knocking him down and beating him. And that's the last fight of his career. That is ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. Ridiculous. That's Marquez's career. A crazy career. Crazy. Shane Mosley. Good Lord. Shane Mosley. Now, in Shane Mosley's prime, he got more wins. But let's look at the quality of opposition that he faced in his prime. In his prime, Shane Mosley was in his prime, I would believe, from 1997 when he won. I believe he won the lightweight. No, actually, I think, yes, 1997 when he won the lightweight championship of the world. All the way to about 2000 and, what was it? 2000 and, I believe about 2007. All right? So he was in his prime for about 10 years. Okay? Your prime is about 10, 12 years. All right? All the Vernon Forrest fights and all that stuff, he was in his prime. Mosley, not even 2007. I think maybe 2000, could possibly be 2007. But here's the thing. He's out of his prime now. And Shane Mosley, he lost to Winky Wright twice. All right? I believe he was in or out of his prime. I can't remember. But after that, Shane Mosley beats Ricardo Mayorga. Well, he goes on a winning streak. And in that winning streak, he beats Ricardo Mayorga at 154, comes down to 147 in 2009. 2 years past his prime. He's 2 years past his prime. No, hell no. Let's see. Mosley's prime ended when he was 30, about 33, 34. So he was 38 when he beat Antonio Margarito. No, 37. 37 when he beat Antonio Margarito. So that's 3 years past his prime. Right? So 3 years past his prime, this motherfucker, at 36 years old, he beats Ricardo Mayorga, stopping him in the last round of the fight. He dropped him the round before. Turns around, comes down to 147, because Shane Mosley was like Marquez. Shane Mosley was moving up and down and away, up and down and away, up and down. So you fight somebody at 154, come back down to 147, dominate that. Go back up to 154, come back down to 147, dominate that. Right? That's how it's going, up and down rate. And he was, of course, pound for pound number one fighter in the world, 2001, I think it was. Anyway, Shane Mosley, right, comes and dominates Ricardo Mayorga. I mean, dominates. Larry Merchant was like, this guy can fight, right? I remember that. Then he comes and he faces Antonio Margarito, supposedly the boogeyman of the division at the time. Antonio Margarito only lost a couple times in his career. One is to Daniel Lopez. Daniel, Puerto Rican fighter. First fight was a no contest with Daniel Lopez at welterweight, and then Daniel Lopez won the super welterweight title. I think it was the WBA or something like that. He jumped up to super welterweight to face Daniel Lopez, and Daniel Lopez beat him. All right, southpaw beat his ass. Right, so that was, he was coming off that loss, but he was undefeated welterweight champion of the world. Okay, he was undefeated welterweight champion. He was a WBO champion. Now, let me give you all a little bit more history, because I'm talking a lot of stuff here. Antonio Margarito was a WBO champion, yeah, but WBO wasn't recognized as a body that could make you undisputed until 2007. So, the thing with Antonio Margarito was he had a belt, but it wasn't a recognized belt until 2007, in which case he didn't even have it anymore after that. He was a WBO champion for a very long time, I think since 2002, something like that. and nobody really knew who Antonio Margarito was. He was an exciting fighter, had exciting fights, but he was facing a bunch of nobodies. Okay, the one guy that he beat, and that was a guy that debuted in the United States who was a name, but at the time it wasn't considered a name, was Sergio Martinez. All right, Sergio Martinez made a name for himself at middleweight, as we all know. But that was many years later. But that's it. Antonio Margarito really faced nobodies, a bunch of nobodies. Nobody knew who he was. Anyways, point is, Shane Mosley, Antonio Margarito made a name for himself in 2008 when that cheating ass motherfucker, sorry about the cursing, beat Miguel Cotto because he had plaster of Paris in his raps, or something like plaster of Paris. Okay, and as the fight progressed, Miguel Cotto's face was just getting disfigured because this motherfucker was hitting him with basically cement in his hands. Okay, that's how he won that Miguel Cotto fight. All right, that's how he won that Miguel Cotto fight. He cheated. Nonetheless, the point is, Antonio Margarito, after he beat Miguel Cotto, which was the biggest win of his career. Okay, he hadn't faced no. He had beaten Joshua Clottey, but Joshua Clottey actually was beating his ass, and then he had a bicep blowout, and he was fighting basically Antonio Margarito with one hand. But anyway, and he had lost to Paul Williams. So the biggest fight that he won in his career, he cheated. Okay, he beat Miguel Cotto. Shane Mosley, in the fight with Shane Mosley, Nassim Richardson found that his raps was funky. And when he checked the raps, stuff was crumbling out of the raps. And then Richardson brought it to the attention of the officials. And the state of California, after that fight, banned Antonio Margarito from boxing in California, Los Angeles. I don't know if they've ever filed charges against him, but anyway. So they had to rewrap his hands. So he was going in without his superpower, right? Which was fucking cement blocks in his hands as it dries. Shane Mosley dismantled that fool with just a jab and his right hand. He just kept him at bay with a jab. Shane Mosley has a really good jab, by the way. And he was just jabbing the dude to death and just landing that right hand. And then when he put the left hook together, he dropped him. And then he hit him with 3 successive right hands and he dropped him again. And then he finished him off with right hands and left hooks, right? Shane Mosley, quick hands, quick feet, in and out action, was able to just offset Margarito and beat it out of him. And he worked the body. The most important jab he had was not the jab to the head, but the jab to the body. Because as everybody knows, I don't care if you're a Mexican fighter. They may have hard heads. Mexican fighters have hard heads. But the body can't take that punishment. It wasn't made to take that kind of punishment. So when you have well-placed body punches, especially the jab to the pit, which Mayweather was famous for as well, that'll take the wind out of you and break you down. Rocky Marciano was good at throwing the jab to the pit as well, at an angle. So, Shane Mosley destroyed Antonio Margarito. It is, in Shane Mosley's words, the greatest win of his career was systematically destroying Antonio Margarito. He said it's the greatest. He was 37 years old when he did that. Okay? 37 years old. Let that register in your head. And Shane Mosley plateaued because the fight was for the number 1 welterweight in the world. He went up to pound-for-pound rankings to pound-for-pound number 3 in the world behind Pacquiao Mayweather. And he was the number 1 welterweight in the world when he faced Floyd Mayweather. In short, what I'm saying to you is, I'm not even concerned with Floyd Mayweather. Shane Mosley did something that very few fighters in the history of boxing could do. You were talking about fighting Archie Moore. Archie Moore at the age of I think was 36 became light heavyweight champion of the world, and he went on until he was almost damn near 50 as champion. He was undefeated as a light heavyweight champion of the world, right? Had a couple of rematches with the same guys, but nonetheless. So we're talking about a dude who, at the age of 35, 36, became champion and was champion until he was 48. Only Bernard Hopkins surpasses him by being champion at the age of 49. Jersey Joe Walcott. I'm gonna talk some history on you guys, because you guys need to understand the history of boxing. Jersey Joe Walcott reached the pinnacle of his career and became a heavyweight champion of the world at the age of 30, what was it? 36, I think it was. 36 when he beat Ezra Charles. 36. He remained champion until I think he was 37. Okay? Joe Louis was champion until he was 37, I think it was. All right? Longevity. You cannot just talk about a fighter's prime. Some fighters, they do their best work in their post-prime years because they got smarter. Okay? This is why when I hear people talk about prime fighters, I say, who are you talking about when you talk about prime fighter? Because prime refers to the type of fighter. Roy Jones Jr. in his prime, yes, that was the best Roy Jones Jr. But not every fighter in their prime is the best version of them. I would argue that Money Mayweather was a better fighter post-prime than pre-prime. I have Money Mayweather beating Pretty Boy Floyd hands down because he was a smarter fighter. And he had to depend on his knowledge and his smarts more than his physical abilities to create the illusion that he was better than he really was. You see what I'm saying? Because he was not capable of doing the same things that Pretty Boy Floyd was doing. But the way how he would utilize what he could do made him smarter and a better boxer than Pretty Boy. He would beat Pretty Boy with his limited abilities. Because he fought smarter, not harder. So that's why, if anybody tell me a prime Sugar Ray Leonard would beat a Money Mayweather, I laugh. Because I know Money Mayweather got so much knowledge. He knows so many different things. He could see so many different shots. No way a prime Sugar Ray Leonard beats a Money Mayweather. Just no way. No way. Because Pretty Boy Floyd wouldn't beat him. And Pretty Boy Floyd is a better fighter than Sugar Ray Leonard. I'm saying it again. Pretty Boy Floyd is a better fighter than Sugar Ray Leonard. However, Roy Jones Jr. in his prime was a better fighter, not as complete. When I say better fighter, what do I mean? I mean in terms of... Okay, so Roy didn't have the inside game, but Roy could do a lot more things that he learned and acquired outside of the school of boxing than Pretty Boy Floyd could. So when I say better, I don't mean in terms of all-around game. I think Pretty Boy Floyd had a better all-around game and fundamentally was much more sound than Roy Jones Jr. But in terms of capability and just showmanship and just the different offensive capabilities that Roy had, he had more in the tank and more in the bag than Pretty Boy had. And Roy had an understanding and knowledge that Pretty Boy copied from Roy. Pretty Boy saw, I didn't need to use no jab. I could just use my left hook and my right hand and lead with my right hand or lead with my left hook. That's something that Roy actually started doing. Roy was the pioneer of that. And Roy picked it up from Sammy Angut. Sammy Angut used to lead with the left hook and the right hand. And he hardly used his jab unless really absolutely necessary to compensate. Manny Pacquiao is another fighter. His jab is pretty good, but he don't really use his jab. He really use angles. He come off and lead with the left or lead with the right hook. Again, special fighters, special effects, stuff like that. Close the distance. Know how to close the distance at different angles. You know what I'm saying? And unless you're a real smart jabber like a Sugar Ray Robinson or a Ezra Charles, you will not be able to cut off that angle because it's a slight angle that they do. And especially with Pacquiao, Floyd, I'm going to tell you some other fighters who are very special. Canelo, they know how to sneak into that angle and get you out of position. Even Sugar Ray Leonard against Wilfredo Benitez, he actually got the step on Benitez, got into position quicker than Benitez to get him with the jab. He used his jab. And again, but there's so many special effects to boxing, especially in this day and age. It's so cerebral and so much more that it's like hard for people to understand that a dude just got position on another dude. That's how he's able to tag him up. Like Floyd is a boxer, so he tried to get position on you. Pacquiao sometimes miscalculates. Like against Mayweather, he miscalculated getting his position. Mayweather light him up. The first punch that Mayweather caught Pacquiao with was what? Not a jab. He caught him with the right hand. A right hand lead. Right hand lead counter. Okay? And that's Roy Jones Jr. right there. That's a Roy Jones Jr. kind of move. Okay? He set up the trap and he caught him with the right hand lead. Pacquiao never saw it coming. Because Pacquiao, he get position on you by getting lead foot dominance. That is to say, he slides his lead foot outside of your lead foot. and then he comes down the center with a straight left, which is a left hand lead. But in this case, unlike like a Sugar Ray Robinson wouldn't do this. He wouldn't catch you with a right hand lead because Sugar Ray Robinson fed off the jab, so he wouldn't come with a right hand lead just like that. And with Sugar Ray Leonard would use the right hand lead. I remember him using the right hand lead, but Leonard didn't really know what he was doing. He kind of like intuitively started fighting these guys a certain way. So Leonard learned through intuition and experience. So Leonard, when he was fighting, what was this guy's kid's name? Ayub Kalule. Ayub Kalule, when he was fighting that southpaw, if you look at Leonard was going both ways. So, but he started intuitively realizing he needed to circle the southpaw anti-clockwise, which would have been his power hand would be closer to the southpaw, and he started learning to use the jab, and picking off the jab, he would come with a two. He would come with the right hand off the jab, circling the southpaw. But guys like Felix Trinidad, they knew how to fight southpaw. So Felix Trinidad circle again. The key to it, when you're schooled properly, is to circle the southpaw going to the anti-clockwise direction. Teofimo Lopez, you watch Dennis Ugas, you look at Floyd Mayweather. Cuban boxers, they're also very technical and very strategic and very calculated fighters, right? So Floyd, Erislandy Lara, Dennis Ugas, when you watch them circle southpaws, well, no, not Erislandy Lara, he's a southpaw, but Dennis Ugas, they circle anti-clockwise, going to the power hand of the southpaw to make the southpaw back up. So see, the southpaw can't get the angle that he really wants. What I would suggest to Anthony Joshua when he's going against Alexander Usyk, if he gets the opportunity, you press the attack going to the southpaw's power hand, but far away enough. What I mean by this is you're stepping with the lead foot. It's all about the lead foot that determines what lead hand you use. If you're going to lose the lead hand to the right, that means you have to square up a little bit, and you're circling this way to a southpaw, which you kind of open here, but you're at a distance, just arm's length, just far enough, and you're creeping in, you're inching in with the lead foot on the southpaw, so you could throw the lead hand and then circle away. Okay, that's the key. And if you're circling this way, it's harder for them to get to the lead foot and get to the outside of the lead foot. You understand? So it's a very strategic thing. And Sugar Ray Leonard, he kind of intuitively figured it out with Ayub Kalule, and then he started going both ways, trying to figure out how to get in on the southpaw. But really, while the orthodox way that they teach you to circle a southpaw is away from the power hand and circling to your left, which would be the southpaw's right. It's better to circle the southpaw actually. Even if you don't have the reflexes, you block it up like Ugas. Ugas didn't have the reflexes like that. You block it up and you circle the southpaw to their lead hand. That takes away their lead hand position. So it's a strategic thing. And again, what I'm saying this for, because I don't want to lose my point and lose my train of thought, is, when you're talking about guys like Mayweather and these sort of dudes, they're calculated fighters. Like, they know what it takes to win. All right? It's very calculated. So, Mayweather versus Pacquiao, Mayweather got the position on Pacquiao. But Pacquiao, again, another incredibly, longevity. Pacquiao lost to Timothy Bradley when he was like 32. He was like 33 when he faced Marquez, and Marquez knocked him out. Marquez was 38. And then look at Pacquiao's career. Pacquiao then went on to win the championship against Timothy Bradley when he was 35 years old. Fucking 35 years old, y'all. Sorry about the F-bomb. All right? 35 years old, y'all. 35 years old. Let me get. He won the championship, WBO champion, 35. Okay? Beat Chris Algieri, 35 years old. Another champion. To defend his title. Okay? Went on to face Floyd Mayweather at 36 years old. Right? Well, I mean, the fight was, it was competitive in spots, but 36 years old. Right? Then went on to win the championship against Timothy Bradley at 37. Jesse Vargas retired, came back to boxing at 37 and beat Jesse Vargas. Then he's damn near 38 years old when he faces Jeff Horn. He loses to him, right? Motherfucker's 39, 38, 39, 38. I think he comes back, faces Lucas Matisse in his own promotional company and beats Lucas Matisse. It's crazy when you think about it. 38 years old, he knocks out Lucas Matisse. Of course, Lucas Matisse had a terrible fight with Provatnikov, and the effects of that was seen when he faced Victor Postol and got knocked out by him because he had some head injuries, I'm sure. But Matisse got career payday facing Pacquiao in Macau, China. And guess what? Even though he lost, his WBA title was regular. Guess what? Still got the respect. And he could retire now. He had got a payday. Y'all got to understand, these guys do this for a living, man. They do it for a living. So in their veteran years, in their last years of their career, which, remember, the last years of a boxer's career is in his mid to late 30s. He's done. It's over. All right? The career is not that long. The pro career, that is. Pro careers for most boxers last about 10 years. All right? I was just talking to a guy who he's 7-3 or something like that, and he had to leave boxing because it costs you early in your career. And early in your career, you're not making no money at all. All right? You're not making none. It's an expensive thing. And then the amateur is very expensive as well. So you got to understand that. So when we talk about these guys, Pacquiao, and these are exceptions to the rule. Exceptions to the rule. All right? Millions and millions and millions of dollars. All right? So Manny Pacquiao, man, he loses to Jeff Horn. He beats Lucas Matisse. Right? And then after that, he faces Adrian Broner. Adrian Broner. It's a young, in his prime fighter, 31 years of age. Pacquiao is 39. He's old. He's a fossil. And yet he puts on a hell of a performance. Not as great as people expected, because Broner breaks his jaw in the fight. He fractures Pacquiao's jaw in the fight with a left hook that catches Pacquiao in the jaw, fractures his jaw. Pacquiao, 39 years old, is fighting with a fractured jaw. And guess what? Dominates Adrian Broner to some degree. It was a closer fight than I thought it was, but dominates him. Clearly wins the fight, right? After that, at 40 years old, man, 40 years old, come back and fights a prime Keith Thurman. We're talking a 31-year-old as well. 31-year-old, 32-year-old, something like that. And Keith Thurman loses the fight. Now, Keith Thurman does outland him. Pacquiao does take a lot of punishment. But he drops Keith Thurman in the beginning, and then he hits him with a body shot in the 10th round that convinces everybody, oh, Pacquiao got this in the bag. And Pacquiao wins that fight. Close fight, split decision. But he wins the fight. Okay? He wins the fight at 40 years old. He's a prime fighter. You can't disrespect that. You cannot disrespect that. Longevity. So you cannot just look at a fighter and say in their prime, blah, 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 blah. That's cool. I get you. You're saying probably that's the best version. I don't think so. Because if that's the best version of Pacquiao was from 2007 to 2009, when he was reckless as hell, he'd have got stopped by Keith Thurman. That Pacquiao would have got stopped by Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman said, this Pacquiao's smarter. I believe Pacquiao got better with time. He got better with time. It's just that certain fighters he match up with certain styles that's kind of kryptonite to him. And we see Mayweather style is kryptonite to him. Why? Because we saw Mayweather style in Udenis Ugas. Udenis Ugas was borrowing the blueprint from Floyd Mayweather. He used that blueprint. He circled him a certain way. He was throwing jabs. He was throwing right hands. He borrowed the blueprint. Pacquiao showed he can't beat Mayweather because he hasn't evolved from the point at which Mayweather beat him. All right? He hasn't added anything to his game. I know Udenis was a short replacement, though. And Errol Spence was supposed to be the guy he was facing. But still, you should have had that somewhere in the back. You should have worked on your game to be able to handle that situation. So you prove to me you can't handle Mayweather any day of the week. You would lose to him because you're not ready for him. You have to be able to deal with that game plan, that strategy, and you have shown me you're not able to deal with that game plan and strategy that was laid out, the blueprint on how to beat you, right? So another good question would have been, could Pacquiao have beaten Jeff Horn in a rematch? Probably not, because the game plan would have probably worked, unless he goes back to round 9 and see why and see what Jeff Horn and what he would need to force Jeff Horn to do so he could knock him out. You know. Um, So what I'm trying to explain to people is there's certain exceptional fighters in boxing. It's just what it is. You look at Crib, Marquez, Mosley, Mayweather. Mayweather at 38 years old beating a young Berto who's 30, 31, 32. Ain't supposed to happen. He ain't supposed to not, you get older, you get beat out of the sport. That didn't happen. You know what I mean? And guys try to beat this dude out of the sport when he's 37 years old. Marcus Maidana, man. Hit him with low blows, put him, everything. Everything. He did all 9 yards to disrupt him and rough up the old man. The old man was just going toe to toe with him and still beating his ass. You know what I'm saying? So, ultimately in boxing, you have to look at these things. You have to look at, Pacquiao in his prime, obviously his physical capabilities would have been much better, right? But we saw him in his prime, and we saw him get KO'd in his prime by a fighter who could time him and who was a counterpuncher. You see what I'm saying? And so I think he was actually a much more better fighter in that he was much more fundamentally sound. He didn't get hit as much, and even if he did get hit as much, he wasn't so reckless that he would get knocked out. Because there's lots of guys with good power they caught him good, and he didn't get knocked out. Broner hit him good and caught him good. And Broner could punch. He fractured Marcus Maidana's jaw. Didn't knock him out. Thurman can punch. Didn't knock him out. And they thought if Marquez did it, they could do it. Timothy Bradley, even, who's not known as a puncher, caught him in the second fight pretty good and wobbled him. But Pacquiao was pulling back, right? He wasn't moving straight into the punch. He stopped the stutter step, and he stopped trying to jump into punches and jump in for the kill. See, with Marquez was putting everything into his punches. But in addition, Pacquiao was jumping into the punch, right? And you will notice Pacquiao didn't do that as much anymore. In fact, he didn't telegraph it by stutter stepping before he jumped in. So, Pacquiao got smarter. He got wiser. And so that's why nobody could stop him. Okay. JJ said, I miss all those fights you're talking about. I only started watching boxing about 5 or 6 years ago. No problem, man. No problem. How do you think the Zoo fight will go this weekend? That's a tough fight, man. Gausha ain't no joke. He's an Olympian. He's a very good fighter. Some decisions just didn't go his way, like the Trout fight. That's a tough fight. I don't know. People are picking Zoo, but I don't know, man. I got to see what Zoo has to bring to the table. That's a good challenge for Zoo. But Gausha is a spoiler, man. He's a spoiler, so I can't say, man. Now, 5 years later, Pacquiao's trainer, Freddie Roach, has described Horn as an awkward fighter who won the fight easily during an exclusive interview with Main Event's Ben Diamond. Yeah. I said that. He did win. He did win the fight. He made it ugly, and he won most of the rounds because he made it ugly. He was kind of what he really did was he nullified what Pacquiao does best. He smothered him. He smothered his offense, so Pacquiao couldn't really get nothing off. And he was big. He used his size. He put his weight down on him, and he knew how to get to the inside. He used the same footwork that Pacquiao would be using, and then he just bum rushed to the inside and work him. And then on the outside, he's kind of pot shotting him a little bit. Yeah. So Horn leads with either hand as well, and all of that stuff. So yeah, he had a kind of kryptonite to Pacquiao. So that's true. Again, I'm not disagreeing with none of that stuff because I after I saw the fight, I thought Horn won 10-2 or something like that. I thought Horn won the fight, and clearly. I think Pacquiao had round 9. That was the only round I could give him. I think it was 10. I think it was 11-1. Horn did beat him. You know, a lot of people say, "Oh, it was a robbery." No, no, no. It wasn't no Teddy Atlas behaving like an asshole. It wasn't a robbery. It's that Horn made it an ugly fight. It was an ugly fight. It is what it is. Horn realized Pacquiao does not fight on the inside. I mean, Pacquiao's improved his inside game. I saw it against Ugas and I saw it against Thurman. And Pacquiao can fight on the inside. You know, I saw it against Timothy Bradley, the second fight as well. It's just that Pacquiao's been so good at mid-range boxing that he hasn't bothered to, dog guys. I saw even early in his career, Pacquiao used to fight on the outside. He actually, when he's the taller fighter, he would box you. I actually saw him put on a boxing clinic against a guy in the Philippines early in his career when he was just a little kid. He was 17 years old. He was out boxing guys. He had good power too. And I saw him in fight. I saw him in fight also in the Philippines. Very good infighter. The thing about Pacquiao is because I guess Freddie Roach or whoever had him mainly doing mid-range fighting, and the mid-range fighting was mainly because again he's usually at a height disadvantage and length reach disadvantage, so he'd go in and out, and pivot around you, kind of like Lomachenko and those guys, more mid-range game. But Pacquiao could fight on the inside, and he'd land some really clean body shots. He was a clean fighter on the inside too. He wouldn't put his weight down on you. He wouldn't he wouldn't even clinch up that much. He'd tie you up if he got hurt or something, but he didn't really clinch that much. So Pacquiao's an interesting fighter, man. JJ says, "I'm out, bro. Good speech." I agree though. Horn won. Pacquiao didn't make the necessary adjustments. Though Pacquiao surged in the ninth and almost got the KO, but he punched himself out. I just think that Horn went back to his game. It wasn't that Pacquiao punched himself out. Horn had made a mistake in closing the distance, and Pacquiao counterpunched him. Right? That's why Pacquiao basically kind of freezed him up and caught him, and Horn didn't make that mistake after that. So Horn allowed himself to get in trouble in the ninth round, but because Horn was in control of that fight for 11 of the 12 rounds. 11 of the 12 rounds, Horn was in control of that fight. And would Pacquiao be able to make an adjustment and do something else with Horn when Horn's coming in? Well, after seeing the Zoo fight, I'm sure he knows what to do. Is hit him with a left, hit him with a straight left, pivot out the way. Roll under his punches. You see? You got to hit him with a left and roll under when Horn's coming through. And as Horn pivots back to come meet you, tag him again and do it again. That's what Pacquiao didn't do. That's to keep a guy off of you. And if he's clinching, you dip under, you open your arms, dip under, and then you either pivot out of the way this way and hit him with an uppercut, or you pivot out the way and hit him with an uppercut this way. And then your weak side and you tag him up. You know what I'm saying? But he, at the time, Pacquiao probably wasn't ready for all of that. So Horn was tying him up and roughing him up and rabbit punching him on the inside, and sometimes getting one or two sloppy body shots in because Horn slaps with his punches. Teddy Atlas is not very objective when it comes to Pacquiao. He even thought Pacquiao was terrific versus Ugas, and he scored. I actually agree with Teddy Atlas. Pacquiao looked great against Ugas. He looked terrific against Ugas, but Ugas just was the better strategy, just a better boxer. Pacquiao was launching attacks like crazy on Ugas. He was but Ugas was just sidestepping him or pivoting out the way, and then he was catching him with that jab. Sometimes Pacquiao running into the jab. That's why Pacquiao's eyes was closed. A day or so after the fight, Ugas had put a beating on him. Like I said, Ugas, Pacquiao was looking phenomenal. He was in tremendous shape. He was throwing a barrage of punches. I think he threw the most amount of punches in 10 years. It just wasn't landing because Ugas was blocking most of them. And Ugas would counter him, and Ugas was the more accurate puncher, and he was just landing more. Yeah, no, Pacquiao looked tremendous. For a 40-year-old, tremendous. Tremendous. It just didn't get the success because Ugas knew all the traps that Pacquiao set and all the pivot work that Pacquiao do to get around you, so he was ready for it. So when Pacquiao pivoted, he just pivoted, and that was that. He neutralized the angle. See, guys like Ugas, they see Pacquiao, they study him, they figure out how to beat him, and he had a great Cuban trainer, Mr. Salas. Mr. Salas is a great Cuban trainer, so that's how that went down. Yeah. Pacquiao threw the most amount of air shots in his career. Yeah, he hit a lot, nothing but gloves. He is hitting a lot of gloves. Because Ugas will block you, and then Ugas got them long arms, just like Pacquiao. Pacquiao got long arms too. He got them long arms to protect his body and his head with his arms. So he was just hitting arms most of the time. Ugas did get tagged up though. Pacquiao did catch him with a couple of nice straight lefts and some right hooks. And you saw his eyes was puffy on top at the end of the fight and afterwards, but not as bad as Pacquiao. Pacquiao took some damage, man. Them right hooks that Ugas was sweeping around Pacquiao's guard, man, it's beating the crap out of him. Ugas did a great job, man. Did a great job for short notice. But I guess Ugas had in the back of his mind Pacquiao's style, and Salas did his homework on Mayweather versus Pacquiao. And this is the game plan for him. Cuban fighters, they very cerebral, and it worked. It worked. Let's see what they got for Errol Spence, because nobody ever beat Errol Spence. They're gonna have to look at certain vulnerabilities. Maybe the Kell Brook versus Errol Spence fight. They'll look a little bit of that. But again, Errol's a tough dude, and I mean, he did got the eye damage and stuff, but by now that's mended up and fixed. Leonard, same thing with Leonard. Leonard eye was good a long time ago. They got that retina patch back up. Yeah, so. Yeah, so I'm gonna say it again. Manny Pacquiao, man, he ain't duck or dodge nobody. At least he didn't duck or dodge Jeff Horn. I don't think. I just think Jeff Horn was. I mean, what do you gain from facing Jeff Horn in a rematch? Why? Give him more clout. Give him more. Maybe Jeff Horn beats him again, and what does that mean? Now I can't even get the big fights. Or it's harder for me to get a big fight. Or I'm in bondage to Bobby. It was not a win situation in any way for Pacquiao to rematch Jeff Horn, unless he becomes his own boss at MP Promotions and say, all right, I want this rematch with Jeff Horn. Jeff Horn always wanted a rematch. Why? Because it's a name. And if he could beat Pacquiao 2 times, he'd build even a bigger name off of that. Yeah? But there are certain fighters that's all they can do is beat one name, and that's it. You know what I mean? And Jeff Horn would be happy to face Pacquiao because that was a guy he prepared his whole life to face. You know what I mean? But to say he can face another top tier fighter and reproduce that, no, he couldn't. Couldn't do that against Crawford. He couldn't do it against Tim Tszyu, who's on the rise. He couldn't do it. So, Jeff Horn was good enough to face Pacquiao. He had Pacquiao's number, and that's it. You know what I mean? But he's not a Juan Manuel Marquez who proved himself time and time again and dominated divisions and became at the top of divisions. Marquez was a top featherweight, top super featherweight, top lightweight, top super lightweight. You know what I'm saying? He was a top welterweight too. He wasn't the number 1 welterweight, but he was the number 2 welterweight in the division. You know what I'm saying? Marquez proved himself. Marquez proved he was the goods. That's not Jeff Horn. Jeff Horn didn't dominate nothing. He beat Pacquiao, and that was about it. After that, he got knocked out by Terrence Crawford. You know what I'm saying? He went up to middleweight, never faced the top middleweight. And then he went down to 154 to face Tim Tszyu, or I think 160. I can't remember which one it is. Tim Tszyu destroyed him. And he retired. Ninja won't continue boxing. He retired. Because he knows there's only so much he can bring to the table. You know what I'm saying? So, it is what it is. I know some of us, we be like, man, why did Pacquiao even face Jeff Horn? Like, why you face Jeff Horn? You gave this guy clout that he shouldn't have gotten. You know what I'm saying? But it is what it is. Good points, bro. I'm out like a light. Yeah, man. Looking forward to the Tszyu fight and Ugas versus Pacquiao. Hey, wait, before you go, bro. Tell me who you think is going to win between Tim Tszyu and Terrell Gaucher. Who you think gonna win? Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know, but what do you think? I like that. I don't know. I want to see the fight and see what Tim Tszyu can bring to the table that other fighters were not able to do against Gaucher. Gaucher is a very good fighter, so I want to see if Tim Tszyu, can convincingly convince us that he's on that level where, Gaucher ain't want nothing. Like if he stops Gaucher. He's ready to face, a top champion. He's ready to face Castaño. He's ready to face, Jamal Charlo. But if he has a problem with Goucher and he's kind of struggling, like Trout and all these other guys did, then it means he still needs another fight. You know. But if he blows through Goucher, he's ready. If he blows through him, I don't know, man. I don't know if he'll do. I don't know nobody blow through Goucher. So if he could blow through Goucher, he definitely, he's ready, right? So that's how I look at it. I don't know how you look at it, but you know, uh, with with Errol Spence versus Dennis Ugas. I haven't seen the American guy except for a few highlights, so I can't make a judgment. But I'm favoring Zoo. Oh, you're favoring Zoo. Okay. Goucher. Go watch Goucher. Goucher faced Terrence Crawford. I think he faced Arislandi Lara. I think maybe. And those were close fights, man. uh, with respect to Errol Spence versus Dennis Ugas, while I favor Spence, if I know anything about Dennis Ugas in Cuban boxing, is don't underestimate Dennis Ugas. All right, that's a good fight, and Ugas is hungry. He had a bicep injury against Pacquiao, and you could not tell that he had a bicep injury. He beat Pacquiao, so I'm not underestimating Ugas at all. I know Ugas is a fighter who beat Ray Robinson. Ray Robinson from Philly, that is. Now, Ray Robinson is a very good fighter. In fact, Ray Robinson should have faced. He should have been the one to face Terrence Crawford instead of Green Machine. Green Machine struggled with Ray Robinson, but Ray Robinson's an avoided fighter. He don't get them big fights. He don't get the big fights, and he needs to get the big fights. Now, Ugas did knock out Ray Robinson, but I mean, in the amateurs, Ugas beat Terrence Crawford. I don't know if you guys know that. Ugas beat Terrence Crawford. So Danny Garcia, had 1-1. Danny Garcia won one fight. Terrence Crawford won it. So, fights that Terrence Crawford could still maybe look at. It's guys like Danny Garcia and Dennis Ugas. I mean, he got a couple welterweights he could face. But it looks like he's going to be facing probably Keith Thurman next. So Errol Spence will face Dennis Ugas, and I think Keith Thurman may face Terrence Crawford. So finally, Crawford will get another big name. He got Sean Porter. I think he's going to get Keith Thurman next. And Errol's going to face Ugas, and I think maybe Errol and Crawford going to face up before the end of this year. That's how I think it's going to look. I always like Ugas, said JJ, so favoring him as the underdog, though I would not bet on it. Oh, dude, I would bet on it. You crazy? Errol just coming off an eye injury. He coming off an eye injury and an accident. And Ugas is coming off a Pacquiao win. And if Ugas is the underdog, I want to know how much. I'll put money on Ugas. Absolutely. Because if he wins, I'm winning some money. That's a good fight to put your money on Ugas. Because he is a spoiler. That's what Ugas do. He's been spoiling guys, momentum to go a certain direction. So he is a live underdog. I would definitely put money on Ugas. I definitely. Are you kidding me? I'll hedge my bet or something, but I would definitely put money on Ugas. Are you kidding me? If he wins, dude, I'll make some good bank. Of course I want that. But Errol's a great fighter, and I don't take nothing away from Errol. I know Errol has shown us he's a winner. You know what I mean? Errol is a winner. Okay? Floyd is a winner. Ward was a winner. Kalzaki was a winner. Rocky Marciano, I'm going to do a piece on Rocky Marciano after I'm done with this video. Marciano was a winner. These are winners. Okay? People talk about undefeated. No. Nobody cares about undefeated. And y'all will say, well, what do you mean by it? Nobody cares about it. Because undefeated only means this. Oh, I made it through my career and nobody beat me. I got a draw, I got no contest, but at the end of the day, I still never got beaten. That's not the mindset you want to have going into boxing. You want to win every single fight you could possibly win. Winners win. Losers and people who get draws and people who get no contest, they got excuses. You understand what I'm saying? It's a totally different mindset. And again, in boxing, a lot of people, it is what it is. People don't get what boxing really is. All right. You look at Ward. You look at Rocky Marciano. You look at you look at Joe Kazaki. You look at Terrence Crawford. You look at Errol Spence. You look at fighters who have wins on their record, not undefeated fighters, wins on their records. That ain't easy. It's a certain mindset. I'm going in there in this fight and I'm going to win. I'm going to prepare myself to win. All I can see is the W. That's a totally different mindset, which a lot of people don't understand. You cannot be an undefeated fighter facing that level of competition without a will to win. Rocky Marciano is a perfect example of that. I'm going to talk about Rocky a lot because Rocky Marciano got knocked down and would not be denied. He would not be denied. And he kept coming. But it's not just he kept coming. He was smart. He used smarts too. He had a game plan. See, winners prepare to win. Winners prepare to win. They don't prepare excuses for if they lose. They don't prepare excuses for if they draw. They don't prepare excuses for if the fight is a no contest. Winners, I'm going to say it again, it's a law of life, prepare to win. They don't know about losing, and they don't have losing on their minds. They're going in there to get the W by any means necessary that's legal. Right? So Rocky Marciano is a perfect example of that. He got dropped. He got rocked. And Ninja, well, this is something that's very important for people to understand. Conditioning. I'm going to say it again. You can't be a winner in boxing if you're not well conditioned. I'm going to say it again. One more time, because that involves a lot of things and a lot of places people need to go mentally, physically, spiritually, and otherwise. They are well conditioned. Kawasaki, well conditioned. Mayweather, well conditioned. I'm teaching gems here. There's life lessons here. Ward, well conditioned. Kawasaki, well conditioned. You may drop them. You're not going to stop them. Okay? Let's talk winners. Let's talk winners. No matter what pathway or what aspect of life you're in, a winning mentality has no fear. So if anybody says any one of those guys we just mentioned are cowards, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. But you cannot win if you do not step without fear. Because you're not afraid, because you are preparing yourself to win. You're preparing yourself to win. And you will be surprised, and this is why boxing is 90% mental, you'll be surprised what your body can do when you lead it with your mind. And you cannot do that if you don't have confidence. That is why early in a fighter's career, they don't put them in with world beaters. They put them in with guys with experience, but guys who've lost their confidence and their belief in themselves. Yeah. The journeymen and the guys with losing records lost confidence and belief in themselves and their abilities. When they first started, they believed. But bit by bit, over time, that belief eroded. And they didn't have that confidence. So what they do in boxing is they build the confidence of the new fighter that they want to see do well off of the lack of confidence of the fighters who may have ability, may have experience, but are not doing well for whatever reason in boxing. Okay? So you got to understand, confidence is the first thing they try to build up in a young fighter in the pros, so that they would use their skills, use their abilities, use it, and have a drive to win. It's a mental thing. Okay? So it's not necessarily the most skilled, the most flashy, the hardest puncher, the quickest guy, the fastest hands, the quickest feet that win in boxing. It's the guy who up here has programmed into his DNA mind, into his mental frame, that he is a winner and he will win against anyone. And yes, they all start out that way. But you have to understand, part of mental and spiritual preparation involves physical preparation. I can will myself how much I want. If I don't prepare physically and experience the challenges that I will face in that ring, possible challenges, every possible challenge that could happen. That's why Caleb Plant, when he got dropped, he didn't know what to do. You got to know what to do. Boxing's all about knowledge. Your confidence comes off of the knowledge that you have, the experiences that you have. You can't get knowledge without experience. In boxing, it's a doing sport, as Roger Mayweather would tell you. So it's experience that you experience in that ring that gives you the confidence to know, I can handle this and I'm a winner. I'm going to beat this guy, because as Floyd would say, or as Andre Ward would say, or as Rocky Marciano will even tell you, they say it in different ways, but they would say, I'll paraphrase, I know I can beat this guy. I know I will beat this guy because he never went through the preparation that I went through. You have to prepare yourself. And I know he's not as prepared as I am. See what I'm saying? So it don't matter that the guy's a puncher that I'm going to face. If I'm prepared for a puncher with other punchers that I've been sparring, his power, he got to come with something else. Power. So that's all you got? Power? You probably have a jab and power. You got jab and a power. That's it? That's all I got to deal with? You got to bring something else to the table, bro. Right? All those guys will tell you, you got to prove to me that what they say you are, you are. You going to have to show me that. And when you step up to a certain level, right? I must be able to step up levels above that. I must be able to step up to a higher level. And when you step up to that high, I must be able to step up to a higher level. Right? So, all of this just to say that, everybody's saying, oh, well, undefeated ain't nothing big. Undefeated is big. Undefeated is big. Of course, undefeated against great fighters is even bigger. But then when you win in all your fights, when you win in every single fight, it says quite a lot about you. Quite a lot about you. It's totally different. Especially against top tier, top quality opponents. That's a totally different paradigm. Okay? Of course, there are many other factors that play into why that happens. All right? When we look at the history of boxing, there's all kinds of things that happen. Okay? We had fighters that beat other fighters, but because they didn't knock them out, it was called a draw. They literally had these things that used to happen in the history of boxing. You go back to the early times of boxing where referees used to judge fights and all kinds of crazy shit used to go down. Okay? So to win was harder sometimes because of the unfair system that was in place. But having said that, all things being equal, and the fact that sometimes we can go and do our own evaluation of fights and realize, oh, this guy actually beat this guy. The referee said it was a draw because he didn't knock him out. As unfair as it sounds. You have to know the history of boxing to know that. So you could say, I'm going to award this guy a win because he actually won the fight. But the referee decided he wasn't going to give him the fight. When you know the history of boxing like that, now you can say, oh, this guy actually beat this guy. Right? So that's how you look at it. Now, as I said before, risk versus reward has been around in boxing forever. Not because Larry Holmes said it in his book. Means that Larry Holmes was the founder of that. Okay? And not all the time, risk versus reward assessment means that a fighter is not ducking another fighter. He may be ducking, but you need to understand the principle behind why he is ducking the fighter. And ducking is not acceptable, but still at the same time, understand that it may not be economic, it may not make economic sense for that fighter based on the risk. When he can face somebody else who's less risky, why would he face a fighter that's risky and get paid the same amount of money? That don't make no sense, does it? Does that make sense to you? Now, if they raise the value, and again, raising the value just shows you the kind of, again, monetary value tells you the value that people have on the fighter. So say what you want about Jake Paul, he sells fights. People are interested in him and they tune into him. So the monetary value tells you how people esteem the fighter. Okay? And it may simply be because of several reasons. The people, remember, this YouTube boxing thing boomed. All these millennials started investing in that more than pro boxing. So it's a good thing that it's kind of come now and it's seen as sort of semi-pro boxing. It's kind of celebrity boxing. It's in this sideshow because it's a good thing because now it's kind of affiliated with boxing. But some people are taking it as an insult because they cannot tell the difference between a sideshow and the actual boxing, because Jake Paul kind of blurs the lines by being a pro boxer himself. But he's really a celebrity boxer who's a pro boxer who's looking to transition into pro boxing, but he has to do it with sort of celebrity figures or big people with a name. So that's why he's trying to fight Tyson Fury's brother, Tommy Fury, because Tommy Fury is associated with Tyson Fury, who's a name in boxing. He's trying to transition into boxing, but with some high-profile guys. So that's how he's doing it, to optimize his dollars. So he's starting as a as a debutant, and then as a contender, prospect. He's a prospect right now, and he's trying to get high-profile names to milk as much money out of his prospecting and go up and up and up, milking money and getting these newbies into the sport of pro boxing. Jake Paul's end goal is to be a pro boxing champion. But he's taking a different route where he's really milking the dollars. You know, Floyd gave the blueprint on this. And so this is why Jake Paul might be a tremendous name in boxing, and you guys are going to have to respect him, is because Floyd laid the blueprint. Now, Floyd was working with Top Rank, so he didn't really have much say in his career until he became Money Mayweather, after he became the cash cow after Oscar De La Hoya. And Floyd optimized his dollars by making these tremendous events against big name top tier fighters. It's very important if you really want to make money in boxing. You have to fight quality opposition. So Jake Paul can do this little sideshow thing for only so much time, and then people are going to really want to see him against a real top tier guy. So when that happens, and if he beats that real top tier guy, that's where the real money will come. And that's where everybody going to come on board. And now he has to top that. He has to keep on topping it by facing tougher and bigger competition. They make bigger fights. You understand? Canelo's right now there. Canelo's fighting champions for a reason. He got to fight a champion. He can't just fight any old person. They'll say he's cherry picking. So even like amongst champions right now, they're claiming Canelo's cherry picking. That's how big Canelo's name has come. That's how much people respect Canelo. And they don't even realize they're giving him credit for this. Because he's about to face Dimitri Bivol. Now, you have to be smoking some serious weed to think that Dimitri Bivol is like a cherry pick. He's no cherry pick. He's nobody's cherry pick. That's if you want to know the toughest competition Canelo can face right now in boxing today, it's Dimitri Bivol. He better than Artur BDBF at 175. He should really be the number one 175 pound. He want to face Artur BDBF. BDBF is what 70? He's 38, 39 years old, 37. He's old. He's slow as hell. Canelo would have the foot speed on him and combinations. And maybe Canelo will not stop him. I don't think he stopped BDBF. Bitter is just be strong. But I just don't see BDBF giving Canelo trouble. I see Bivol doing that because he's got the foot speed, he's got the angles, he's got the movement. Slip weak side and all kinds of shit he could do. So Bivol is a problem for Canelo. Jamal Charlo, good fighter. Again, quick reflexes, very sharp, very fast. He would be a problem for Canelo, no doubt about it. Demetrius Andrew would be a problem for Canelo, no doubt about it. But they don't, at least at middleweight, they don't really have a resume like Bivol. And then on top of that, the thing about it is, Bivol actually is better at movement and sidestepping, even though he's not as explosive, movement and sidestepping than Charlo. But Charlo would be a bigger fight, of course, because Charlo is a bigger name. Andrade is a problem. Andrade is a serious problem because Andrade knows the ins and outs of slick boxing and everything. Bivol's a little bit different, and Bivol's more like Lomachenko, Usyk. Sidestep you, punch you at different angles. He doesn't really stand perfectly directly in front of you. It's kind of hard to pin him down. It's hard to really get him in a corner and beat him up. He knows what to do. So it's a very tricky fight for Canelo, and he has to get his foot speed up. He has to get his foot endurance up, meaning he's going to have to move his feet quickly for 12 rounds. He's going to have to get that footwork in. Precise footwork is not going to work on Bivol. So, I don't know, man. I'm just going to watch and see what happens with that fight and how Canelo forms a game plan to beat Bivol. I'm not going to say too much more on that, but I just don't see how he's going to beat Bivol. I just don't see it. Bivol's the bigger guy, too. And he has decent power. My point anyway is that they criticize Canelo, but you can't criticize Bivol. You can't criticize Canelo versus Bivol. Would I have loved to see Charlo versus Canelo and Benavidez? Absolutely. I think Canelo beats Benavidez. But Charlo versus Benavidez, because it's two young fighters. Bivol and Triple G versus Canelo. I know everybody wants to see Canelo versus Triple G 3. I just don't think it's competitive at all. I think he knocks out Triple G. Bivol's a good fight, but then the Triple G fight coming behind it, it's not, in my opinion. And that's the only thing. That's the downside to it. But who knows? Maybe he loses to Bivol, and then the Triple G fight might look more appetizing because of that. But Bivol's trouble, man. So that's what I'm trying to say. When you get to a certain level in boxing, even now they're trying to deny Canelo pound for pound number one status, but his resume is his resume is pound for pound number one. He's 19 champions in. Floyd's 20, and in Floyd's entire career he fought 22 world champions. Canelo's 19 champions in. Looking to break that record. Canelo's coming to the end of his prime career, but he's looking to break that record. He's only 31. You know what I'm saying? So Canelo's on course to do some crazy shit in boxing, and I just hope he would face Jamal Charlo, Demetrius Andrade. Those are the two guys that I guess is building up to something if they can stay undefeated and stuff, and beat some names and stuff. It will be good. But like I said, Canelo, he's phenomenal, man. He's phenomenal. He's a phenomenal boxer, and I ain't got nothing to say. I told people, Canelo, I'm not worried about Canelo getting knocked out or anything like that because his defense is on point. So win, lose, or draw, I know he's going to be on his feet. He's a defensive fighter. I never heard of him even get dropped. He never even got dropped in boxing. So, he's an incredible fighter. I just think that he has to work on his cardio for his feet, foot endurance, foot speed. He needs to work more on that. Not to say he's not explosive. Not to say that he don't have quick feet. He has quick feet, but he can't maintain it for very long. And it is what it is. So hopefully he can work on that. That's why he gets on box a lot of times. Anyway, this is what you need, man. I've talked for you guys for 2 hours and 49 minutes and 40 seconds. That's a lot of talking of boxing. I haven't talked to you guys in a while. I still gotta come back and do another video on Rocky Marciano and what made him so special. And I'll talk a little bit more about other people, but I just had to talk. Pacquiao. It was up to Pacquiao. Pacquiao faced everybody in boxing. Pacquiao ain't afraid to face nobody. And we talking an old ass Pacquiao too. Pacquiao be fighting everybody. You know what I'm saying? Floyd could have beaten anyone. He felt he could beat anyone because he knew how to prepare the process it takes to win a fight. So I think Floyd was more of a guy who was looking for big fights all the time to make the most money out of boxing. So he would face the number one guy, but he wouldn't face, if I face the number one guy, why should I face the number two guy? Floyd wasn't like, I'm going to go through and I'm going to beat everybody in the division. Just everybody, number one, number two, number three, whoever challenged me, like Roy Jones said, if you challenge me, man, I'm coming to fight you. And Floyd wasn't like that. He was like, I'm going to beat the best guy in the division. Then I'm going to move on to the next division and beat the best guy in that, and so on, You talk a lot of sense, man. Have a good day, champ. Yeah, you too, bro. So Floyd had a kind of different approach in that respect. He was looking for the biggest and the best fights. And again, you see boxers today looking for the biggest and the best fights, but you gotta fight each other, guys. You gotta have the pretty boy Floyd days. You can't be just trying to beat Money Mayweather. It don't happen like that. Floyd made a name for himself, became pound for pound number one in the world. You see Terrence Crawford right now? He pound for pound. I mean, I argue if you're talking about the eye test, Terrence Crawford is the best fighter in the world. Period. Eye test wise, come on, man. Dude, stop Sean Porter. Who's ever stopped Sean Porter? Who's ever stopped Sean Porter? I mean, Errol put him down. I mean, Julio Diaz put him down. I mean, Broner put him down. But he never stopped him. Nobody's ever stopped Sean Porter. And Porter was stopped by Terrence Crawford. You can say what he want. Yeah, he fouled to pull him. Yeah, he probably could have gone to the finish. You can say what he want. That's a fact now. Crawford stopped him. I was very impressed. Very impressed. I mean, they were going to and fro. But the fact that Crawford hurt him and then stopped him, come on, man. So, no. Crawford is pound for pound the number one fighter in the world. Is he the best welterweight in the world right now? Errol Spence got more on the belt, so I can't say he's the best welterweight. I'll say he's still behind Errol. But he the pound for pound best fighter in the world. Come on, man. Eye test? He ain't got a resume like Canelo. So Canelo and Crawford are here, 1 and 2. So if you put Crawford below Canelo, fine. If you put Crawford above Canelo, fine. All right? But at the end of the day, so Canelo, I think Canelo's the pound for pound king, and his money and his currency and everything that's coming to him proves that fact. And the cash cow as well. But Crawford, man, easily you could say he's not pound for pound number one from his performances. His performances are crazy. But like I said before, you cannot be an 80+ fighter and you're not drawing crowds, right? And Crawford's not, he's not that kind of draw. He's probably a draw in Kansas, but he's not a draw, globally. And people ain't putting out that money on pay-per-view to see Crawford like that. Errol's a bigger draw than Crawford right now. But I think if Crawford faces Errol and beats Errol, he'll get that cash cow status. And even if he doesn't beat Errol, but he puts on a good fight, he's going to become a pay-per-view star from that. Sean's pay-per-view numbers, kind of helped go up because of Errol. So, but Terrence Crawford's a hell of a fighter, man. Hell of a fighter. I mean, and he's supposed to be making big dough. So hopefully, links up with PBC, links up with Al Heyman. I just hope Al Heyman, can work with NTK and MTK, and we could see some beautiful fights with Crawford. The Pacquiaos, another Pacquiao, sorry, the Thurmans, the Spences, the Ennises, the Ortizes. We could see all those fights We got some other guys too. Birdos. We got some guys that are welterweight. What's the guy's name? Shit. The guy that beat Shane Mosley. It's coming to me. Avanesian, the David Avanesians and them kind of guys. Get those fights together. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, what you need in the building? I talked a lot of boxing. You guys share these videos. They're long ass videos though. Share these videos and like, share, comment, subscribe. I'm gonna catch you guys later. What you need out. Peace.